And Bradford, I'm going to text you this 11:30 guest's number right now.
And
ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from Enterprise Center before the Blues home opener on 101 ESPN.
alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, we're broadcasting live at Enterprise Center where the Blues are on the ice. I'm looking back right now. I can see them.
Well, be careful, don't fall.
As they are on the ice ahead of tonight's
Bad dad
season
joke.
opener between the Blues and the Minnesota Wild. We have made it, Alex Ferrario. It is officially hockey season. How you doing, man?
Great. You know, other than the way that I woke up, we'll get into that later, I'm sure. When you get to go take the shower and you put on the suit and you get ready to go down to Enterprise Center, that to me is a great day. And there's just something about an opening night when you're not playing Seattle or you're not playing one of these teams that really don't matter. You open up against a team that most in St. Louis just hate. So I think it's the perfect way to start off a hockey season. And what better way than to kick off like 13 straight hours in downtown St. Louis?
Yeah, you can't beat it. Blues back on the ice. It is good to be back, and their core is in place, Alex. And now what I find maybe most fascinating about this season is we finally get to learn, is it good enough? Is this core good enough for the St. Louis Blues? Because it's a question that we have asked, God, I don't know how many times over the last 3 or 4 years. Is Thomas and Kyrou and Parayko with Shin and Booch and all these guys, are they enough? Because they're good players. We know individually all of them. We like watching them on the St. Louis Blues, and there have been moments in the past where it's like, can you win with Kyrou? Can you win because of Kyrou? Is this going to be good enough? We're about to find out, because now you have the supporting cast. We have seen over the last couple of seasons Doug Armstrong go out and make the necessary moves. He went out and added Pius Suter this offseason. He got a Logan Mailloux to help stabilize that third pair defensively. Last year in season, he gets Cam Fowler. Before that, you're able to add Broberg and Holloway. They have now added the necessary talent to this group to be able to find out, can they be the pieces that supplement the talent that was already here? Because for all of the talk about what's changed about the Blues heading into 2025. The truth of the matter is, this team will win or lose based upon the guys that have been here for a long time. It's going to win or lose based upon whether or not Thomas is capable of taking that next step into stardom. It's going to win or lose based upon whether or not Jordan Kyrou is capable of replicating the year that he had a year ago. Colton Parayko, can you be the guy that you were last year? You love Jordan Binnington, Alex. Can he be the guy that he was last year? Can he replicate the regular season success to give him the opportunity to have that playoff success? So to me, that's what this season is all about. You've got the core. This should be the start of your winning window. The way that happens is if they're good enough, and we're about to find out whether or not they are.
Yeah, I mean, these last 3 seasons when they've gone through this retool that they've liked to call it, you know, you've looked at some of those core pieces and you said, I think they've got the right guys, and now it's just adding more support cast, right? The Snuggeruds, you bring in Holloway and Broberg, but the core was Thomas and Kyrou and Buchnevich and Colton Parayko and Jordan Binnington. So now, in the midst of this retool that they've talked about, which I still believe most in the Blues front office believe, like, you know, they're on the tail end of it. They're not out of it yet. But now you're about to find out if everything that you focused on for the last 3 or 4 years, if you've got the right guys to carry you through this and into a playoff sustained success. You know, last year we made the reference to 2011-2012. They fired Payne, Hitchcock took over, and they led to like 10 straight years of being in the playoffs with the exception of one. in those 10 years, the core that they had, they found out they were the right guys. Now, they had to do some tinkering. They fiddled with some knobs, as we like to say on BK and Ferrario. But you had Backus, you had Perron, you brought in Tarasenko, Pietrangelo. Like, these were the core pieces that got you to the promised land. Now, Thomas, Kyrou, Buchnevich, Shen, Parayko, Falk, like these guys, you've been here long enough, you're the veterans. Now, can you carry them out of this retool while you're still developing the younger players? Because I was just looking at it. If you look through the guys that you're looking at and saying, like, these are the core pieces for the future, you've got 8 of them that are under the age of 25. 25 or younger, there's 8 of them. So, like, you've got the young pieces. They've already had the playoff experience. There's no more of acting like, oh, well, they need to see what the playoffs feel like. Man, you just went to Game 7 against Winnipeg. Now, can you do what you've lacked the ability to do for the last few years, and that's start off hot and win in the first couple of years, or win in the first couple of months of the NHL season?
Yeah, this feels like the season where we should come out of it and say the retool is over. You know, and I think it's part of what you're saying there about this core, because you look at their top 6, for example, what it's going to be tonight. 5 of those 6 should be here for the long run, right? You look across the board of the top line. Booch, Thomas, Snuggerud. That feels like your top line for the next couple of years. You look at the second line there. You've got Shen that's centering it. He's the one piece that may not be there in the top 6 over the next couple of years. But then you've got Kyrou and Holloway there. They belong in this top 6. The reason that you've been in the retool, there's been so many question marks about that top 6. I think you're good now. I think you should be set up for the long run. And I think that means right now this is the season where you see this all come to a head and you say, okay, the retool is over. We are now in that next 10-year window where we should be a playoff contender every year. And then you build up from that up into that cup contender.
So, Alex, this is a question you asked earlier today. Let's go ahead and discuss it. Who's the player with the potential to raise the ceiling for this team? Because I think all 3 of us will come on the air today if we're doing official predictions. Like, I think this team's making the playoffs. Maybe you think they're going to be 3rd in the division. I think they're going to be 4th in the division. They're a wild card team, whatever it may be. But we all believe this is a team that is capable of and will ultimately make it to the playoffs. What's the thing that could happen? Who is the player that could raise that ceiling from getting into the playoffs to, oh, bleep, this is a contender, and the window wasn't just cracked open. They kicked the door down, and now suddenly they are among the best teams in the Western Conference. Who's the player that allows for that to be the case?
Mine's Pavel Buchnevich. It was an easy one for me. He, to me, is the difference between escaping by and being a wild card team versus being a 2nd or 3rd place team in the Central Division. Before last year, the last season that the Blues made the playoffs was 2021-2022. That was Buchnevich's first year where he put up 30 goals and had 76 points. From then on, he not once touched 30 goals, and he not once touched 70 points. And they missed the playoffs. Now, last year they made it. He was fine for you, but you needed to see more other guys stepped in. To me, Holloway, let's say he just does the same thing this year. Doesn't go any further, does the same thing. Snuggerud, he's just on pace for what he was projected to do last year in the regular season if he played 82 games, which is like 30 to 40 points. If you want to be a 2nd or a 3rd place team in the Central Division and be looked at as, oh yeah, they could do some damage in the playoffs, to me it comes down to 89. Can you be that top line left wing with Robert Thomas and Jimmy Snuggerud? Because a lot of people around the NHL, including scouts, view that top line as one of the dangerous ones. But it all hinges on Pavel Buchnevich's game ability to create and generate more space for Jimmy Snuggerud and Robert Thomas.
Yeah, for me, it would be his other winger, and I think it's Snuggerud. And I hate to go with what feels like a chalk answer there, but I think we saw last year, if Booch is what he was last year, you can get into the playoffs. To raise your ceiling, you need someone that is going to lift it in Jimmy Snuggerud. Can he be better than, like, Bolduc is the piece that they lost in the offseason? If Snuggerud has a 36-point season and Booch does what he did, I think you're going to look a lot like you did last year. But if Snuggerud comes in and is able to take the world by storm, get in that Calder Trophy conversation, then I think he's the guy that lifts that ceiling, because he's probably lifting both your play at 5-on-5. He's lifting Robert Thomas to get to potentially that 100-point pace that we've talked about. Also, it also increases your power play, because I expect that then he's going to be getting a bunch of points on that power play unit as well. I think he's the guy that lifts their ceiling if they want to get to the top 3, which I think they can this season.
All right. How about I want to say Dylan Holloway here, but we've talked about him so much during the offseason. You guys know how I feel about him, so let's set him aside.
You want to go with Texia here?
No.
Lucic.
Can we talk about
Yes.
Philip Broberg a bit?
Oh, hell yeah, we can. What do you want to talk about? How he's the next big thing?
He's kind of the forgotten man. because early on last season, we were saying wild things about Philip Broberg and what he could do for the ceiling of the Blues and how this is the missing link. All of those things are still true. Like, Philip Broberg can still be the guy that posts 50 points this year for the Blues defensively and goes out there and is a legit, like, 6'3 plus, 200 plus pound defenseman that can move the way that very few can and posts offensive numbers the way that very few can. Like, he's got all of that still in him. And I feel as though when Cam Fowler was added and went on that torrid second half pace, we almost kind of set Philip Broberg aside because he's in that second pair role. He's with Justin Falk, all of these different things. I think he's kind of the forgotten man right now. He's going so under the radar. And if you're able to get the same out of that Fowler-Parayko pairing as you did a year ago, and Broberg looks the way that he did in the first, 25 games last season, suddenly you have the makings of a borderline elite defensive group. And I think for a lot of people, that's the biggest question heading into the year. If that now becomes a positive factor for the Blues throughout the course of the season, I think it's the easiest way for them to be able to improve more, for them to upgrade that ceiling from where we currently see it.
I think you're spot on, and I agree. People aren't talking enough about Broberg, and I think it's because his pace died down after he got injured and came back and wasn't the same player. Still was great defensively, just the offense wasn't there. How many teams can say they have 3 legit top-pair defensemen on their team?
Very few.
Like, the ones that can are typically teams that you look at and be like, yeah, they could go the distance in the playoffs. That's legitimately what the Blues have on their hands. Now, I don't know what Fowler's going to look like this year. I mean, there was a lot of adrenaline and just really good vibes working for him last season. How does it carry over? Parayko, I think, is going to be the exact same player. I think he's going to be double-digit goals. I think he's going to be floating around 40 points and be a number 1 guy. If Broberg continues that pace and lives up to that potential, 3 top-pair eligible defensemen. That's a dangerous thing to have on top of guys that can create and generate a lot of offense. I said this a while back, and I stick with it. I think this might be the best top 6 defenseman the Blues have had in a long time, if not overall in franchise history.
I mean, definitely since that, 2019 stretch.
Yeah, it's just the depth in terms of your 5-6 are viewed. I mean, one of those 5-6 and Logan Mailloux is viewed as a top 4 defenseman. Tyler Tucker last year was like, they can't lose this guy in the Winnipeg Jets series. So
it was a huge deal when he went down.
6 guys that you don't feel bad about when they're on the ice. And again, this just might be super hype and excitement for opening night, but it's a lot different feel than what the last 10 years have been for the Blues.
It's also legitimate. It's also legitimate when you think about it because, the top 4, they're established for the most part. And then you look at the third pair, and you're actually developing something there. And that's why I go back to that 2019 team, because they had guys that were waiting in the wings ready to go at a moment's notice that are young players, that are adding to and supplementing the talent of that top 4 that you had that season. So I think that's what feels different for you right now, is you're building for the right now, but you can also see how this window opens up and becomes something more than just a good 2025 season. It all begins tonight right here at Enterprise Center with Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. We've got Jody helping us out on the engineering side of things out here as well. Blues back on the ice this morning. They will take the ice tonight for the home opener against the Minnesota Wild. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Ryan Clark, no, not that Ryan Clark, the hockey Ryan Clark of ESPN.com, has projected the Blues to finish in the top 3 of this division. Why does he believe that they have that kind of ceiling? He'll answer that question coming up with us in 15 minutes. But next, oh boy, New York is mad today. The Yankees are missing their window with Aaron Judge. What happened? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Championship Series. Going through the New York Yankees in 4 games, and again, withstanding the Yankees' best punch.
That is what it sounded like last night on Fox Sports as the Yankees go down 5-2, lose the series 3-1 against the Toronto Blue Jays, and Aaron Judge once again heading home early. Alex, I saw this stat last night. Aaron Judge is the second player in Major League Baseball history to bat at least 600 or better in a postseason series while having multiple hits in every single game.
Good.
The other to do so was Babe Ruth in the 1928 World Series.
Oh, man.
So the first to do so in, 95 years. And it wasn't enough. This was not a story about Aaron Judge coming up small in the biggest possible moments. Judge was awesome in this series. He had the big moment that allowed them to get to this Game 4, and then the team just peed down its leg once again. They had nothing around him. The pitching wasn't good enough. The rest of the lineup wasn't good enough. I'll go ahead and read you some of the averages for their roster around Aaron Judge. 138, 214, 192, 192, 227, 182, 222, 285 with Ryan McMahon, who had all of 14 plate appearances in the series. They're not good enough. The New York Yankees flat out aren't good enough right now. And I'm sure their manager will be taking all of the heat this week because he probably made a terrible decision in the minds of the Yankees fans. Man, this wasn't about a manager. This was about a roster that's not good enough around one of the greatest right-handed hitters that we have ever seen in the history of the game. And it's become a theme now. Aaron Judge is no longer a young man. Judge is 33 years old. He will be 34 by the time that we start next baseball season. We are now entering the end of Aaron Judge's prime. I don't know how many more of these kinds of seasons Judge has in him. Hell, I don't know how he still had a season left like this. He's had an OPS over 1,000 each of the last 4 seasons, Alex. That's crazy. And yet the Yankees have not been able to capitalize at the highest possible level. So my question to you is the one that I would imagine they're talking about a lot today in New York. Have they missed their window? Have they already failed to capitalize on one of the greatest hitters that we've ever seen?
I think so. I mean, you're the Yankees, so you can always spend money. You're the Yankees, you can always go out there and acquire more talent. But essentially, they failed to do so in the last few years because everybody they go out there and acquire doesn't help them to get to the next point. And I mean, like, I saw somebody put it in the YouTube chat, and I think it's spot on. It's kind of the same spot as Connor McDavid with the Edmonton Oilers, to where it's like, now, McDavid also has another superstar, like a generational player with him, and they still can't get it done. But it sucks for a fan of baseball to see Aaron Judge not be on a team that has that type of success. But, yeah, I mean, look, when you get to this age, not saying that he's going to start being decrepit, but we've seen in the past that guys, as soon as they start to get up there in age, their play maybe starts to decrease. Is that going to happen with Aaron Judge? Hopefully not. Hopefully he stays on this pace for another 4 or 5 years. But if I'm a Yankees fan, what leads me to believe you're going to put a competent roster around him to win the World Series when the last few years you've had Judge in the prime and you still haven't gotten that done? So I can never count out the Yankees because they've got the money to spend, but it starts to get really questionable when Aaron Judge gets to 34, 35 years old, and you wonder if that same talent is going to keep lasting through October.
Yeah, I think their window is closing. Now, they've got a chance to potentially, like, bring in a young superstar. Like, if they go out and sign Kyle Tucker, which they should have conversations with this offseason, okay, now you basically move from the Judge window into the Kyle Tucker window. But, yeah, for the most part, they seem to have missed their opportunity with Judge because you look at Judge, you mentioned he's not a young man anymore, going into his age 34 season next year. It's a little different because he dealt with injuries for so long, but Mike Trout really started to fall off a little bit at age 31. Now, his fall-off was an 858 OPS, so to be fair, he was still very good, but he wasn't Mike Trout of old.
Injury-related.
Exactly, but Judge is starting to fall apart. Had an elbow issue earlier this year, had the weird toe injury last year. Like, he's going to start falling apart potentially here, and we'll see if his offense is able to sustain because once you start dealing with injuries, he was able to overcome the elbow one this year, but once it happens, it starts to really decline as we saw with Mike Trout. So I think their window is potentially closing. I think they need to go out and they have to find another superstar to help support him in case there is a little bit of a drop-off. And when I mean drop-off, I mean like what Trout did, where it is, okay, you're no longer a 1,000 OPS guy, you're like an 850 OPS guy.
Somebody on the text line from the 618 said, guys, you're right, but tell me the Cardinals wouldn't kill for that lineup. You wouldn't, outside of Aaron Judge. Outside of Aaron Judge, their lineup is your lineup.
I was going to say it's kind of the same.
Yeah, they have 3 guys in their lineup that are a 125 to 130 OPS plus, which is like 25 to 30% above league average. That's what the Cardinals have.
Yeah, that was Burley and Herrera this year.
And Contreras.
Yeah.
It's those 3 guys. That's what they have around Aaron Judge. Now, the difference is they have Aaron Judge in the middle of their order. If you replaced, I don't know, Jordan Walker with Aaron Judge, you just flip the 2 players. The Cardinals basically would have been the Yankees this year offensively.
Yeah.
They're not all that different, and that is the problem. Like, we're talking here in St. Louis about how they're lacking multiple players in their lineup. They're lacking the starting pitching. They're lacking all of these different things. That is where the Yankees currently find themselves. These teams have so many similarities over the last decade, where they've got these individuals that have been in charge of their teams for so long, and you do start to wonder, have things gone stale? Do they lack new ideas coming into the organization? So the Cashman aspect of all of this is part of the story, in my opinion. I don't know if they need to fire their manager. I told you guys at the All-Star break I would have fired Aaron Boone right then and there.
Yep,
but
I remember that conversation.
The way that he handled that home run derby was just horrific.
Yeah, we should fire him over an All-Star
The swing off was a problem, and I think that was very clear that he's not the guy. But
you know
anyways,
what? If he had a second chance, I'm sure he'd fix it.
if they decided this offseason, hey, we got to go in a new direction, I think it would be understandable. Because, like, you need to show real urgency here. It is time to capitalize on Aaron Judge, and you maybe have 3 years remaining to do so. So, to answer my own question, did they miss their window? I think no. I think no. If you have Aaron Judge still in his prime, and I think he is still right now at least in his prime, your window is still open. He is that dominant. But you have maybe 1 or 2 years remaining, maybe 3 if you really are able to stretch this thing out, where that is going to be the case. So show some urgency this offseason. If they decided to fire everybody involved, I would understand it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think firing Aaron Boone makes a difference. You got to put a roster together with him.
And that's why I'm saying, like, you maybe have to go all the way up to the GM to change the idea, change the mindset on the types of players that you're bringing in to surround Aaron Judge.
Yeah, you probably, or not probably, you do need to do that. And if I'm Aaron Judge, I'm kind of demanding it right now because, like, there's only a couple more years. He might still be in his prime, but I agree with T-Bone. Like, things have started to break for Aaron Judge in terms of injuries, and I don't know what that's going to look like in a year, 2 years from now. And if I'm the Yankees, man, you need to pounce when you've got this guy performing like Babe freaking Ruth.
Yep.
And I don't know how fair it is of Cashman because, like, Cashman, maybe it has grown stale, but I don't see the same issues like I saw with the Cardinals with Mo. And the reason I say that is, like, they traded and acquired Juan Soto last year. And they got to the World Series with him, and they tried their best to retain Juan Soto. Like,
yeah, because they have different resources than the Cardinals.
But, like, what I'm saying is, like, I don't think it's grown stale. Like, Cashman's done his job of getting most of the roster around Aaron Judge, got them to the World Series last year. This is the first year. I don't think Cashman's
They don't
their
play
problem.
good defense. They don't run the bases well. You said earlier today they look old. They're not actually old, but they look old because of the types of players that they're acquiring in a league that has gone younger, more athletic, more agile. They are going in the opposite direction. They're building the way that you would have in 2005 instead of in 2025. Somebody on the text line said, guys, they have so much better pitching than the Cardinals do. Absolutely. That's part of the story here. But this is the problem. Like, when you build around pitching, it is incredibly fragile, and it can break like that. And theirs did break for the most part. So I think he's done an okay job, but ultimately you're judged in New York based upon the wins and the losses. And I'm not talking about during the regular season. They can win 95 games every year into perpetuity. If they don't win into the playoffs, and if they don't hoist over that trophy over their head, it's a failure by Yankees fan standards. And they have been a failure for 15 years now in New York.
Yeah, I still view it as Cashman's doing his part. I look at it, I think he's done a good job of getting them the rotation that they needed with Fried and Rodon. They've developed some decent young pitching arms. They've also developed Ben Rice, who is a young, looks like stud, who's going to take Goldschmidt's job next year going into it. At 26 years old, he had a 836 OPS. Like, they've developed their next secondary piece.
I mean, he's the same thing that you have in Alec Burleson.
We just said that those are some of the pieces they're missing. Like, he's gotten to that point. And if we're being honest, part of the Yankees' problem, it wasn't this year. But part of the Yankees' problem over the last couple of postseasons was we can talk all we want about they're losing their window on Aaron Judge. Judge didn't show up for October for 3 of the last 4 years.
You know what helps? Having better supplementary pieces.
I mean,
You
he had
need
Juan
other guys
Soto
to be able
last
to
year
su-
with him.
Sure.
And he didn't play well.
And you need better supplementary pieces. They have failed to develop their internal talent. We talk about it all the time with the Cardinals. The Yankees have failed to develop the necessary internal talent to be able to take that next step. Most of the guys that we've talked about, them being able to really build around, they're from the outside, which is fine. Like, you should be able to go out there and get those people as well. Rodon, Fried, these guys are coming from the outside. They're missing on their own internal evaluations. Eventually, that has to start mattering. You can continue to spend and spend and spend and paper mache over all of your mistakes. Eventually, you've got to be able to produce some of your own players as well. All right, coming up next, Ryan Clark. No, not that Ryan Clark. The NHL analyst. He's going to join us and talk about why he's so high on the Blues going into this season. Ryan Clark next year on 101 ESPN.
Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Thank you, betting.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline on a Blues game day. Oh, it feels good to be able to say that
Hallelujah.
once again.
We're back.
Broadcasting live from Enterprise Center, where the Blues will take the ice this evening against the Minnesota Wild. And on the Callier and Thompson hotline right now to help us preview this Blues season is Ryan Clark of ESPN.com. He wrote earlier this week that he believes the St. Louis Blues can finish higher than many do in this Central Division. Ryan, first of all, we appreciate the time, man. Why are you higher than consensus seems to be on this year's St. Louis Blues team?
Because it seems like the Blues just have a lot of options. I mean, you look at the fact that last year they had, 7, 8 players that scored north of 15 to 17 goals. Yes, you lose one in Zachary Bolduc, but you think Jimmy Snuggerud can be that. P.S. Suter's coming off of a 20-goal season. If Cam Fowler plays the whole year in St. Louis, who's to say he doesn't break into double digits himself? And if Philip Broberg can stay healthy, that's another player. And granted, goals aren't everything, but it's a big part of it. And then you take into account what that team was able to do on the fly, learning from Jim Montgomery within his systems. What do you think they're going to be able to do now that they've had a season and an off season and now have more comfort within that structure? So look, we all know the Central Division is more or less a hellscape. That's the nicest way to put it on radio. But that being said, this is a team that looks like it has a lot of different dimensions to it, and looks like it could be one that challenges not only for a playoff spot, but truthfully one that could do more than just reach the playoffs, maybe even get into the second round.
Ryan, I know this is predictions here, and it's kind of what the business we're in. I know it's not the business you're in, but do you see this as a opening of a window for the Blues to just be a consistent threat in the Western Conference?
Yes and no. Yes, because of all the reasons we just talked about. No, because truthfully, you think they could do more than just be a consistent threat to make the playoffs. Like in some ways, and maybe this is a little hyperbolic, you would think the way they're set up now, they could challenge for a Stanley Cup in the next 2 to 4 seasons, because you have this youth. You have a farm system that is showing it can develop. You are making the sort of moves in free agency that not only bring depth, but they add a two-way element to it as well, as we've seen the last 2 years. Look, P.S. Suter can do those things. Matthew Joseph can do those things. Nick Bjugstad can do those things. There's been a shrewdness in how they've operated, whether it be with the Fowler trade or the offer sheets. And those aren't moves that you just necessarily make to go get the 7th or 8th seed. Like, those are moves that you make because you're trying to win something significant. And so when you take all those things into consideration, like, yes, they look like they could be a playoff team, of course. But when you look at what the long term, or maybe let's say medium term, could be, again, it sounds hyperbolic, but to suggest that this team could have enough in a few years to challenge for a Stanley Cup, it isn't unrealistic, especially when you look at how their contracts are set up.
So for this season specifically, Ryan, as you look at the 2025 St. Louis Blues, who is the player to you that opens the ceiling the most? Like, if they hit a new level in their game, the ceiling is raised significantly for the St. Louis Blues. Do you have a player that comes to mind for you in that regard?
It would probably be Jimmy Snuggerud. Maybe that's a little bit of an easy answer because he's a rookie, but you think about the promise that he's shown. And not only the promise that he's shown, but what he represents. And it goes back to what we just talked about with the farm system. You've seen Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou come through and have an impact. You've seen Jake Neighbors come through and have an impact. And now when you look at this next wave of prospects like a Snuggerud or a Dalibor Dvorsky, you're starting to wonder, like, okay, how far can this go? Especially when the conversation around the NHL for what feels like the better part of a decade now is it's this farm-to-table mentality. Like, we saw Tampa do it, and it led to championships. We saw Colorado do it. It led to a championship. We have seen the Dallas Stars do it, and it's led to them advancing to 3 consecutive Western Conference Finals. And to a degree, as much as we talk about Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, a good chunk of the Oilers have had a lot of homegrown players on it. And so they're another example of that as well. And so if you can have that consistency in your farm system, like we've seen, I know we say the better part of a decade, but longer than that, because look, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Washington, like those teams were built on the strength of their farm systems. Like, that's that's one of the biggest ways you can win in this league, unless you can do a quick turn like a Vegas or a Florida. And even then, those exceptions are they're exceptionally rare. But with the Blues, it seems like that's the guy that you're looking at, because it's so much more than what he can do on the ice. It's about what does it tell you about what your system and development is doing away from it.
Well, Ryan, you mentioned Edmonton's farm system, and we talked all year last year about how they screwed up because the Blues got two guys from their farm system that looked like they could be stars. From the national perspective, when you saw what Dylan Holloway and Broberg did last year, does it feel like the NHL's looking at those two as emerging stars in the NHL?
Potentially, because the thing with Holloway is people recognize the talent. It was just, could he be placed in a position to really showcase that talent? And now that you've seen a year of it in St. Louis, okay, what can he do this year and beyond? With Broberg, it's a little bit more of a difficult one because, again, it's the health conversation. If he can stay healthy and show that he can consistently operate as a top four defenseman, that is something that's going to make more people take notice. But it's like any conversation with defensemen in this league at this point. Yes, the defensive play matters, but how you produce points is such a big component. And so with Philip Broberg, like, look, you're going to be playing second pairing minutes, assuming that Cam Fowler is going to be your top pairing. But even then, it's one of those, when you look at the power play, that's where you can do a lot of damage. And the way it's set up right now, he has Cam Fowler in front of him. He has Justin Falk in front of him. And so those opportunities may not come to him, but if he can find ways to get points and work his way into that conversation, more people will take notice. Again, it's like the Jacob Slavin discussion. Like a lot of people have said, if Jacob Slavin for the Carolina Hurricanes scored more than, let's say, 60 points a season, he would get talked about more in terms of the Norris discussion, because if it's not for the points conversation, people think he's the best shutdown defenseman in the NHL and should be under consideration for that award every year.
Final one from me, Ryan, and we appreciate the time. We've heard a lot of how Jim Montgomery is viewed around the National Hockey League of being one of the better coaches in the NHL. Do you have that same feeling of him?
Yes, but the perspective is a little bit different because I used to cover the USHL and I saw exactly all the things he did in Dubuque. And the word juggernaut would be an understatement. Like, Dubuque would just go into arenas and just destroy. And so to see what he did there, to see what he did at Denver, to see what he has done, whether it be in Dallas or Boston or St. Louis, it comes to this conclusion that he's a really smart hockey coach. And not saying that he is this person, but rarely do you see coaches succeed at every level quite like that. And in some ways, it kind of reminds you of Larry Brown, where when Larry Brown was coaching in the NBA or just basketball in general, he won everywhere. He won in high school. He won in college. He won at the NBA. And there are some coaches who can pull that off. And Jim Montgomery, it seems like he's one of those coaches. And so to see what he has done to this point, it's not a surprise. It's just going to be interesting to see how it works in St. Louis, given the way front office feels about him, the way the organization as a whole feels about him. And also just when you look at what they did last year, it's how do they go about breaking into that conversation where the Central, for as difficult as it is, you're being mentioned in the same breath as those Stanley Cup challengers like a Colorado or a Dallas. And or better yet, how do you find a way to maybe draw even with a team like Winnipeg, which for all the talent the Jets have, even they're trying to figure out how do you break into that next step, and that's not even taking into account what the Wild are trying to do. So this is a long way of saying he's a very talented coach, and that's what they're going to need because, again, the Central Division is a hellscape.
Ryan Clark is a fantastic NHL analyst for ESPN.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan_S_Clark. Ryan, we sincerely appreciate the time on the Blues home opener day. We wish you nothing but the best. We'll talk with you again soon.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Ryan.
It's Ryan Clark, ESPN's NHL analyst, joining us here on BK and Ferrario, high on the St. Louis Blues aspirations, not only this year, but beyond.
There's a reason that I invited Ryan to join
Yeah, we
our
know, buddy.
show.
We
also,
know.
I love how he labeled the Western Conference to be
Yeah,
a
hellscape.
That is so
Central
true.
Division.
Basically, whoever can stay the healthiest is going to be in the playoffs. And what's great about it is there's already a couple of teams in the West that are dealing with injuries before opening night. So I do think that's what this is going to come down to in the Western Conference. Who can stay the healthiest? And if you get injured, how do you manage that?
Blues back on the ice this evening. Minnesota Wild on the ice right now, right behind us.
Yeah.
T-Bone was mentioning, looks like they maybe have some goalie issues, huh?
Oh, man.
Give us
go
a
over the
scouting
glove.
update.
Yeah, if you go glove sign, that's a goal. long as you get it on net. let me
Glove
tell
high
you.
or glove low, T-Bone? What are we thinking
I've
here?
seen it go over the glove.
Okay,
you know,
so
over
glove
the
high.
glove. Let's see what we got going on
Ladies and
here.
gentlemen, keep an eye out because Tanner Hendrickson,
Remember that scouting report.
not only is suited up and looking good, with the YouTube chat, Graveyard, by the way, thinks you're going to get a couple digits tonight because you're looking good.
Yeah, they said you look like you're 35 now.
Yeah.
You're looking taller.
35, I look older?
You're boosted up a little
Congrats.
bit compared to me and Alex on your chair. We're really proud of
I
you,
don't want
buddy.
to be
You're
the
growing
same
up.
age of Alex, 35.
What
He's been
the
complaining about his
hell?
body's falling apart.
Dude, my calf
See?
muscles. Oh man, I must
Not
not
good,
run
huh?
properly. I think I got to go get my shoes checked out.
Yep.
I think I run like a horse,
I should.
like gallop. And I think I just like land on my feet wrong. Maybe I got plantar fasciitis, you know?
You would know if you had that.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that one I think you
very
would know.
different.
My
thing.
calves hurt. I think I had shin splints. Maybe I'm just out of shape. We've already addressed
I think
that.
that's probably more in line with
But
what
you know
it
what?
is.
I was going to have something this morning. I was going to have a donut, and I said no.
So look at that willpower.
Watch
really
out,
proud of
ladies
you,
and
buddy.
gentlemen.
He's Alex.
Weight
That's T-Bone.
Watchers.
I'm BK. If you missed any of our conversation with Ryan Clark, you'll be able to find that after the show today on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Coming up next, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here at BK and Ferrario.
opening night in St. Louis, and BK and Ferrario are broadcasting live from Enterprise Center on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101
Allegedly.
ESPN.
All right, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. We can also get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line at youtube.com, or excuse me, on the YouTube chat, rather. YouTube chat. Went into autopilot there. youtube.com/101ESPN STL. All right, from the 314. Guys, what results in this Ohio State game is necessary for Illinois to stay in playoff contention?
I think you have to, if you lose, it can't be by, I'd say, like, more than 2 scores. I think if you get blown out like you did against Indiana, there's no way for them to recover from that. Even if it's like 14 points, it feels hard. But I can still see a path where the committee looks at it and goes, yeah, Ohio State's just that much better. Maybe Indiana beats Oregon this weekend, and the committee will look at it and go, man, they are one of the elite teams. And you look at that and go, okay, a 2-loss Illinois team does belong here in the playoff.
I think it's a win. I think that's the only way you get yourself in this conversation, because right now there's 3 ahead of you. And if you win, I think you put yourself in that 3 conversation.
If you lose by 7, I think you can still be in the conversation, but then it requires you to win out. So you're still in it, technically speaking. That win against USC allowed for that, but yeah, you'd have to beat Washington on the road, and then you have to take care of business the entire rest of the way, and you probably need a little bit of help because you have such a blemish on your resume with that Indiana loss. You didn't just lose; you got punked by another potential playoff team, and that will be a tiebreaker potentially. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, not including the top 10 matchups in Oregon, how many of these top 10 teams will lose? Ohio State versus Illinois, Bama at Mizzou, Ole Miss versus Washington State, OU versus Texas, A&M versus Florida, Texas Tech versus Kansas, and Georgia at Auburn. Do you guys think we'll see a decent amount of upsets this weekend?
No, I think we see one. I think it's Alabama losing to Mizzou.
Ooh!
I think that's it. I would you call in? Did they have Indiana over Oregon? Would you call that an upset? I wouldn't call that an upset, right? 7 over 3.
So that one they said not including that.
That's
one.
not that's not an upset. But yeah, no, I don't think Oklahoma loses to Texas because woof.
Also, technically, that's not an upset. Texas is favored.
Which I'm going to pull a BK here.
I'm with you.
I don't understand what they're doing on this line.
Yep.
A&M I think wins against Florida. So yeah, Georgia over Auburn. I think the only one is Mizzou taking down Alabama.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the only one that I see the path towards is Mizzou taking down Alabama. I am picking Alabama in that game right now. But I can see where Missouri hangs around, makes it interesting, and somehow finds a way to win that game because they are not that far separated. This is not the old Alabama rolling into town.
Boy, Bo Prabila. What's his face?
H.A. McCarron. Yeah. From the 618, Alex, who do you have scoring the first goal for the Blues tonight? Who do you guys going with? First goal of the season will be.
I'm telling you, these goalies over here on the ice behind us, they can't stop anything over their glove. I'm going Snuggerud beats the starter over glove. First period, Blues up 1-0.
Why did he go John Gruden there?
I don't know.
I'm telling you.
Let me tell you about the Minnesota Wild goaltenders. They can't stop the puck glove side. I'm saying Snuggerud goes top shelf to win it tonight.
Who you got, Alex?
I'm going Dylan Holloway.
Logan Mailloux for me.
Get that. Whoa. Dude, put odds on that one. Because
Logan
Mailloux. Take it. If a defenseman scores, I would say it's going to be Broberg.
Okay. I'm going Tucker if it's a defenseman.
What is with you two right now?
I saw his shot.
I'm going Bennington scores first tonight.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from Thanks, Dad. Is it weird to broadcast from Enterprise Center, but then to have to leave before the actual game? Obviously, this is not for Alex, but for BK and T-Bone, and presumably for the Fast Lane. No, not weird at all. I enjoy coming down here. I like it. I like being here for practice. I like being where the action is. So the action is here today. I enjoy being here. T-Bone, I think, is staying for the game tonight. He's going to be covering it alongside Alex. I will be heading home. I'll be hanging out with Little Man tonight. I've got another podcast to do as well, and I think that most of the Fast Lane guys will be heading home as well.
Yeah, this is my home away from home.
Sometimes sticks around though. So
I spend 7 months of my life here, so this is home away from home for me. I love this little press box.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 801. Guy says the NBA become America's least favorite sport now.
Should be.
MLS is below NBA, and if you go by ratings, Major League Baseball is rated lower than the NBA.
Are they talking here or globally?
They said least favorite sport in America.
Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah, I would say MLS probably has to be the lowest on that one.
Yeah, I agree. MLS is by far.
If you're going
the
the
lowest.
core four, though, I think NBA would be the lowest of all of them.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, does college recruiting even excite you anymore? I know the game has changed, but there is some Twitter account that's tweeted that Mizzou has gotten 4 recruits before we all know about them. I don't care that much about it anymore. I've talked about this with T-Bone quite a bit. High school recruiting just doesn't matter that much. It's something that is, it's important. You can't just stop recruiting high school players, and the better players that you get out of high school ranks, the better your team's generally speaking going to be. But most of those guys don't impact the roster for 2 to 3 years at a minimum, and you can get guys out of the portal that are immediate impact players, and some of them, like Ahmad Hardy, are going to be here for multiple seasons as well. So I care much more about the portal than I do high school recruiting. Doesn't mean it's a 0, but it's much lower on my priority list.
I mean, I'd still get excited when you see a 4 or 5 star recruited by your team. It's
Sure.
it's a different type of excitement. Like, I still remember Green Beckham when he was recruited to Mizzou, and, like, that was the biggest thing going on at the time. But I don't know. I still get excited when you see it. The hard part is you just don't know how long you're going to see that player with your team and if he's going to be with your team in a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of it anymore because, like, I find myself somewhat excited because Brett Bielema's doing a really good job of recruiting right now at Illinois, and by really good, I mean by, like, Illinois standards, to where, like, I think it's the best class right now going into next year that they will have in, I think it's, like, the last 20 years,
Jeez.
something like that.
They're ranked, like 40?
Yeah, like that, like top 50 is what they are, and it's like the best
Good to
that
get
they've
excited.
had.
You got to
But,
get excited about something,
This
T-Bone.
is where I'm like having a tough time. Like, should I be excited about it? Because in the old days, yeah, like I mean that would be like transform the Fighting Illini. But now I don't know how much it's really going to change because like they got to go to the portal for a quarterback next offseason, right? I don't think they've got an answer internally. And the other thing is you recruit all these guys. Okay, that's exciting. But is Bielema going to really be able to keep all the 4 stars that he's been able to recruit? I kind of doubt it because they're all going to sit on the bench for the first couple of years.
All right, last thing here. Ask Alex, why go with a red blazer instead of a blue one for the home
Seriously.
opener?
What the hell does that mean?
Well, the Blues are playing tonight.
Well, that's fine, but they're not playing the Red Wings.
I know, but
It's not like I'm wearing the other team's
they're not
colors.
wearing their retros
This is my
either.
nice
Oh,
suit.
man, I see one team that has red in their logo, and it's certainly not the
Yeah,
Blues.
that's true.
Yeah, I see a team that looks like a Subway bag. What are you talking about right now? You guys are crazy. This is my nicest suit. I put the nicest suit on for the biggest night of the year.
Okay. Just maybe we next time.
How
get
about
it.
you wear a suit next time and not khakis?
I wore blue.
How about you dress up? T-Bone's not wearing any
I got
blue.
blue on. What are you talking about?
One of us
You guys are
is
trash.
not wearing the team colors, and it certainly is not me or T-Bone.
You guys are
That's
trash.
all I know.
You guys
All
are
right,
trash. I got blue
314,
socks on, and they're the office
399.
themed.
I got blue socks on as well, and blue shoes.
Those are white
314
socks.
Oh, they got blue on them.
He's wearing white
399-9646
ankle
is the Air
socks.
Comfort Service
I got
text
blue
line
socks on.
to get involved in the show.
You know what would just happen right here? You're going to get pinched on St. Patrick's Day because you're not wearing green. I hate that. I hate both of you. Who cares?
You definitely are the guy
I
that
look
doesn't
good.
wear green, aren't you?
I look good. That's all that matters.
I didn't realize that Alex was going to get as upset about that question as
You know
he
what?
was.
Don't insult someone's attire, okay? I put a lot of effort into this.
No, you didn't.
What the hell?
I think he did.
I did. I put a
did.
lot of effort into this, okay?
You look good, man.
Shut up.
Coming up next,
Shut up,
Joey
Brandon.
Vitale. We'll ask him about Alex's attire next year on 101 ESPN.
goes as we head into the Blues booth on 101 ESPN. Presented by Boardwalk Hardwood Floors. Find your perfect new floor at boardwalkhardwood.com.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go back out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest. He is Joey Vitale joining us on the day of the Blues home opener here in St. Louis. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Joey! I get to see your beautiful face on TV tonight.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. What's going on, boys?
Oh, we are hanging out at Enterprise Center, Joey Vitale, where the Minnesota Wild Extras are out on the ice right now for morning skate. Looking forward to tonight's game between the Blues and the Wild. What's your level of anticipation, man?
Yeah, I tell you, if you look down, right where the Extras are working down to your left, you'll see.
There he is.
My handsome mug. I'm in the corner. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, there's Joey V.
Look at me. Oh, now this coach is like, what is this guy doing?
The coach is going to shoot a puck at your face.
Security.
Say, there's a guy watching us right now.
we got a super fan wanting to get the Extras autograph. I'm doing great, guys. Guys, I'm excited. This is not only the start of the year. You know, it's a heavy matchup. You know, I think Minnesota's, one of the heaviest teams in this division still, next to Winnipeg, but maybe even more than Winnipeg. You look at some of these names with Bogosian, Foligno. I tell you what, you look up and down, even the smaller players like Hartman. I mean, Hartman can still jingle and jangle. Jacob Middleton. This is a group of Minnesota Wild that certainly pride themselves on playing that heavy Central Division style of hockey, and I can't think of a better matchup tonight for in front of this home crowd to get this place rocking than to seeing some good big boy physical hockey.
The last 3 years for the Blues, their home openers have been the Seattle Kraken, the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Los Angeles Kings. So I'd say this was a really good matchup for them, Joe.
I mean, it doesn't seem right, does it? And that's where I get excited about it because, like I said, there's history between these two teams. I know everyone's geeked up about Chicago and St. Louis, and there's wonderful history there. But like I was talking to Braden after the practice a couple of days ago, Chicago and St. Louis, they really haven't had a lot of meaningful hockey in recent history. So even that rivalry is kind of fallen off a little bit. So, for me, modern day age, this Minnesota Wild team, they certainly always know how to bring out the best in each other. It's going to be a good defensive battle here tonight. Incredible goaltending. It's going to be a low-scoring game, but it's certainly going to be exciting from puck drop here at 7 p.m.
Joe, what's the players' level of anticipation for something like this? The season ends not the way you want, probably frustrating, and then you open up against a Central Division opponent that could be fighting for you in the playoffs.
It's exciting. I mean, it's exciting for a lot of reasons. One of the biggest reasons I think that the players are excited about this one, Alex, is because a team that they pride themselves both on, not necessarily having like the Connor McDavids. Yes, I know that Minnesota's got the Kirill Kaprizovs, but I look at the McKinnons and the McDavids, and I kind of put them on a separate threshold. I mean, those are absolute superstars, right? That can change the game with one shift. Kaprizov certainly can. Don't get me wrong, but I don't put them at the same class. And so last year, when they lost Kaprizov, they lost Eriksson Ek. Right, it was a pack mentality in Minnesota. Like they needed everyone. Everyone needed to pitch in, and I think that St. Louis is the same way. There's no superstar. There's no one that you can say, "Hey, give us a shift and turn this game over." It's a pack mentality here as well. So two teams coached very well, very similar styles between Jim Montgomery and John Hines. Incredible communicators. But they both are pack coaches. They know that they need everything from everyone, and you're only as good as your weakest link. So I just look at the team dynamics between both squads, and that's, to me, what makes this matchup here tonight really exciting.
Joey, we've been waiting about 5 months to see this team back on the ice, and we've been talking about all of the questions all offseason that we wanted to get answered. For you, over the first, 10 or 15 games, not all of these are going to be answered immediately upon this game tonight, but over the first 10 or 15 games, what's the biggest question that you want to see answered for the Blues?
Well, I want to see how they defend. I think defending is going to be super important. This idea that you can outscore an opponent, like, yes, you certainly can, You look at the LA Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights game last night. It was an exciting game. I don't think the Blues want to get into a goal-for-goal type of situation with any team this year, especially in this Central Division. I think the strength, believe it or not, I know it sounds crazy, I think the strength that not a lot of people are talking about within this team is actually going to be defensively. It has to be. I know we're excited about the Dylan Holloways. Jimmy Snuggerud is going to bring people on the edge of their seat. I think, Robert Thomas is a player that can come really close to 100 points this year if he stays healthy. There's a lot of offensive things that shine, like diamonds and rubies, and you want to see those. But the strength of this team, I think, truthfully, is going to be the goaltending, starting with Bennington, and the fact that they have, yes, some older D, but big, rangy guys that can skate. If they can defend and they can put in their minds very early that we have to be okay winning these 2-1 games, these 3-2 overtime games, maybe it's a shootout victory. You have to be okay with that, because that to me is your lifeline. That to me is what's going to get you to postseason hockey, come April. When you start playing cowboy hockey, reckless hockey, riverboat gambling hockey, that to me is where it can catch up with you, because once the scoring starts to dry up, and trust me, it will dry up, then you kind of look around and say, well, what are we now, right? At least when you defend first and you take pride in the D zone, your goals are going to come. You got too many skilled players to play that way, but you have to rely on the old faithful, which is defend first and be okay winning some minimal hockey.
How do you, as a player, are you focused on at all, Joey, that 6-on-5 issue that we saw for the last month of the season and what kicked them out of the playoffs? Or do you forget about this at this time and just wait until it happens in a game?
Yeah, I think you have to wait. I think there's been some different things they're doing throughout practice. They haven't had a ton of time really to work on it. We did see a special teams practice the other night, Alex. But, that's for Jim Montgomery to figure out. It's his situation. He's the coach. Certainly Doug Armstrong in the city of St. Louis, everyone was extremely disappointed by not only the goal in Winnipeg, but, everything. It was just trending that way for too long. It's certainly Montgomery's job to fix that issue. I think he's got the horses to do it. We're going to see a couple personnel changes. I think 6-on-5-4, when they need a goal, I think you're going to see a much simpler approach. I think it's going to be shots from everywhere. They're going to have 2 men at the front of the net. It's just going to be those ugly, nasty, kind of front of the net, trashy kind of goals. That's what we're going to see. And when you're defending 6-on-5, to me, look for a much more compact setup. Last year I think they really wanted to be overly aggressive. You don't want to give too much time and space to the guys on the perimeter. But I think what happens is when you start stretching out, lanes start opening up, and that's where it's no good. So I think a lot of philosophy changes are going to happen this year. The most important one, of course, being when you're defending a 6-on-5, you want to make sure that you're certainly very, very compact.
All right, Joe, last thing that I wanted to ask you about, one of the big changes for the Blues this year is something that you're involved with, and it's the simulcast that's going to be taking place tonight, both on 101 ESPN and FanDuel Sports Midwest, with you and Chris Kerber. Of course, Alex Ferrario going to be on the pre- and post side of things for us here on 101 ESPN still. What's your level of anticipation for that? It's something that you haven't been a part of before here in St. Louis. So what are you looking forward to there, Joe?
I'm looking forward just to get going. I don't know really what else to say, BK, because
Sure.
I don't know what else to expect because I haven't done it before. Curbs has not done it before either. This is kind of uncharted territory. I think about if you were to ask Lewis and Clark, hey, what are you excited about? They'd probably like, don't die. I'm excited not to die. That'd be something pretty pumped not to. I don't want to definitely die because there's a lot of danger out west. So yeah, I guess I'm looking forward not to die, and that would be awesome. That's a pretty true expectation. But no, what I mean by that is there's just so much unknowns. I mean, listen, there's not as many unknowns as exploring the West. I'm not comparing myself to Lewis and Clark. By any stretch of the imagination. But if I am going down that road, I got my Sacagawea. I got Alex Ferrara with me, and he's going to guide me throughout. He's going to guide me throughout it all. But, as you can tell in my voice, there's a lot of unknowns, and I just don't know. But I am excited to start. I'm excited to bring enthusiasm and excitement to the broadcast. I'm excited for Curves. I think that he's got such an awesome call that it's gonna reach more people right now. We got some really cool stories. We have a great relationship rapport with these players. So we're excited for all those things. And truthfully, I'm calm. I should be way more nervous, but I'm calm because we just got a hell of a team. I mean, from Timmy Paps to Phil Malika, Julie, Tim Trokey does an unbelievable job. EJ with FanDuel. We got such an unbelievable squad of support. And those guys guide me. I mean, they're in my ear all game. Joe, we're going here, we're going here. I just kind of show up, try to do my hair, make sure my tie's straight, and and blink, and then all of a sudden it's going to be over.
Well, first of all, Joe, you're going to be great. Please don't change. Please keep these wherever the tangents you go off on, keep those going in the broadcast. Second of all, as they say in Tombstone, I'll be your Sacagawea.
Yeah, I was looking over to see where Joey Vitale had ventured because I desperately
Well, he's
wanted him to be
venturing west.
on the glass as he was shouting, "Sacagawea!"
I'm going to be like Lewis and Clark.
You just have the Minnesota Wild extras. Like, what
They've
the
already
hell
called
is
security.
going on?
They've already called security. You better run, Joe.
Joe, have you decided where you're going to be tonight? Are you going to be between the benches? Are you going to be up in the booth? How's that going to work?
I don't know. I was gonna show up. Like, where do you want me? And then
If you're here tonight, send us your pictures at 101 ESPN. It's like, where's Waldo? Where's Joe?
Yeah, find Joe and send him to 101 ESPN on Twitter.
no, I'm kidding. I'll be down in 320, just to your guys' left. I'll be at the old booth spot where John used to station himself. Curbs and I will be together. We're gonna be side by side this year, which I'm excited about. I think the chemistry side by side, it's just there. You read off each other. You pick up more cues. There's different body language ideas that, to us, we just want to make sure we're having the chemistry and we have this togetherness. And side by side's great. We were going to stay up top. We're going to get a little bit closer to ice level. So we'll be down in 320. If you're coming to the game, come say hi.
Yeah, well, if there's a hat trick tonight, which there will be, I'm going to chuck the hat right at you guys.
That's right. Just make sure it's not a ring. Make sure you guys don't lose your rings. That would hurt.
Yeah.
Hit the top
You guys
of my
didn't
head.
hear about that with Trevor losing his. Oh, sorry, I said his name. He lost his ring up top in the middle of a post game, and then he lost it because he was waving his hands around, and he goes, "Oh," that was his reaction.
Oh,
Whoops. Joey and I are like, you just lost your freaking ring, and whoops is your reaction. He found it though.
They found it.
They found
sure
it.
Did.
Joe,
Just like Lewis and Clark.
they
found the West.
They went and they explored and they found the West.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm basically Lewis, and Curbs is my Clark tonight.
And I'm Sacagawea, just as everybody
You're
thought.
Sacagawea.
It'll be
We're gonna
beautiful.
put you on a coin one day too, Alex. Just
Amen
like
to
you
that.
did.
I'll take
I
that.
think she's on the $1 coin. Is it the $1? Do people still have $1 coin?
Well, Joe, we're not going to get political on this station.
Yeah,
right now.
BK, the one that doesn't want to get political right now.
What do you have against Sacagawea being on the $1?
Oh, no, it's the whole $1 coin thing. There's some stuff going on. Joe, you can look it up after we get off the air. Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again soon. Enjoy the game tonight.
See you, boys.
See you,
All
buddy.
right, and Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every week here on BK and Ferrario. Looking forward to the broadcast tonight.
I really hope he does those tangents. God, I mean, it's
you
pure,
can't get away from it. That's who he is.
It's just pure entertainment. I think in that article that JR wrote, which was outstanding, by the way, Joey referenced Dr. Seuss, and that was everything I needed to know about Joey. I read that one line where he referenced Dr. Seuss, and I'm like, yep, that's Joe Vitale.
Yeah.
Love that man.
I am, like, just as a fan of the Blues and as somebody that will be watching most of these games and listening to it, right? Like, it is one of my biggest questions about the season. Like, we can't avoid it. We're part of this, right? Like, 101 ESPN is broadcasting the games. Curbs and Joey have always been a part of 101 ESPN on the call, but also, like, now they're going to be doing the simulcast. It's one of the things that I'm most curious about. What is that going to look like? What is that going to sound like? It's not an easy thing to accomplish, to be able to do that for both the radio and the television side of things. So I would say this, like, give the guys a little bit of grace because whatever it sounds like tonight is probably not the way that it's going to sound in 10 games or 20 games or 30 games. They're going to try stuff and they're going to find out what works and what doesn't. And I don't want to speak for them, but you can go read Jeremy Rutherford's piece, which is over at The Athletic earlier today. I thought it was a really good explainer on what they're hoping to accomplish with this broadcast. I have no idea what it's going to look like a month from now, but I know how it works on our side of things, Alex. When we start new shows on stations or there's changes that take place, people judge immediately on whether or not it's going to work. And a lot of the time, like when we got put together, Alex, man, that is not what it sounds like today.
Yeah. Oh, God,
it's
no.
just not. It's a different show. And it's going to be the same thing for what they're doing on the simulcast. Give them some time, no matter what it sounds like tonight. Like it's going to continue to improve over time.
Yeah, I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised at how good the broadcast is going to flow. I mean, it's new for everybody. Like, nobody that is doing this tonight has dealt with simulcasts before. So the one thing that I can promise everyone is Curbs and Joey aren't going to change. And that's what I believe is the reason they're on the television side for the simulcast, because it's just incredible chemistry when they're together. And this isn't anything against John Kelly and Jamie Rivers, because I thought they did a great job. But Curbs and Joey, I think, are a duo that can expand this broadcast, and they can try some different things. So I think the entire crew that they have is going to be great, but it might look shaky early on, and that's what's to expect when you haven't done this before. But give it 5 games, and then I think you're going to be off running very smoothly with what they're doing on the broadcast
Give
side.
Alex a little bit of grace as well. I'll go ahead and say
Oh, no, I'm
this.
going to be great.
I think Alex is going to do a phenomenal job, but on the radio side of things, there are also some changes there as well for what Alex is doing in-game and, frankly, what Grant and Jordan are doing on the production side of things. So give everybody a little bit of time. Give them some grace. I promise you this thing will get ironed out over time, but there will be changes that take place, and over time, I think all of that will be able to get ironed out. All right, for Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Huge shout-out to Joey Vitale. Great, as always, here on the show. If you missed any of our conversation with him, check it out on the podcast page after the show today at 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
ESPN.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters alongside Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Thursday Night Football this evening. I'm sure many of you here in St. Louis are going to be locked into the Eagles versus the Giants as the St. Louis Blues take the ice for the first time in the 2025 Blues season.
There's nothing I want to see more than the G-men, as T-Bone likes to talk.
And they pull off the
upset
win
tonight against the Eagles. So, no, I'm going to be not watching any of this.
Do you guys have any curiosity towards this game? Because I do, actually.
No.
And I'll be locked in on the Blues game. That's going to be my primary screen. But off to the side, I'm going to be curious what the Eagles' offense looks like. Because for all the talk that I know we had this conversation yesterday, T-Bone, about, hey, the Eagles do this. They get off to slow starts. This is nothing new. This is what they do in most seasons. The rushing issues are new. Saquon Barkley was amazing from Jump Street last year. And this year, here's their leading yardage. They haven't, let me just put it this way. They've not had anybody rush for more than 90 yards in a game this year between Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley. That's crazy for the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a good defensive line they're going up against. So for me, that's going to be one thing that I'm paying attention to tonight. Is there anything else that gets you guys excited going into tonight's game or that has your anticipation for tonight's game?
No, I honestly could see the Eagles losing this one, and I still won't care. I really think the Eagles are that team that's going to be in the playoffs, and when they get to the playoffs, they're going to find ways to win football games. So if there was one area, mine would be the defense, because I think it's the area that they're probably most fragile in right now. They're not as dominant as they were last year, and if the Giants put up buku points on them without their two best receivers, then yeah, probably a little bit more of alarm bells going off. But the Eagles have earned enough credit now for me to look at and say, I don't really care what they do with the regular season. Get into the playoffs, and then they're probably going to be good.
Yeah, I focus on the Eagles' offense just as a whole, right? You mentioned the running game. The running game's not been good. The passing game shouldn't be this bad either. They got to start getting the ball into A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith's hands just to keep these guys happy, right? Sure, these guys might stick around this year, and they'll be willing to do the thing while they complain on Twitter about their role, but at some point, these guys might want out of the Eagles organization, and that changes everything for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I want to see their offense as a whole because this defensive line from the Giants is awesome. I think they are going to be causing havoc. It's why it would not shock me at all if the Giants win this game. I've been kind of joking about, the G-men win. I would take them plus the 7.5, no questions asked.
I think it's a fair pick going into tonight's game, especially with the points. On the quarterback side of things, Zach Taylor announced that Joe Flacco is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. This was not a surprise. Once you trade for him, the likelihood is you're going to be starting him, right? They couldn't go back to Jake Browning. It was time to go with somebody new, whether it was him or somebody else. There was a report that came out earlier today. Apparently, Drew Lock was one of the other quarterbacks that they looked at, and they ultimately landed on.
Where is Drew Lock?
Where is Drew Lock right now?
Isn't he still with the Giants?
Jets?
I don't think so.
Is that right?
I don't know. Jets.
Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, he's still there?
He's with the Seahawks. He went back. He spent time with the Giants last year. Now he's with the Seattle Seahawks. Should have known that one. I honestly did not remember. Okay. Do you think that Joe Flacco can help this team reach the postseason? I know it sounds crazy, but we've seen this before where he comes in, has a great start. They're only 2-3. It's not like they're completely out of this thing right now, despite the horrible start to the season for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I realistically do believe he could help them get to the playoffs. I mean, what he did in Cleveland, what was that, 2 years ago, where he just stepped in and looked like one of the best players on the field? I think with the weapons that they have at wide receiver and the weapons that offense can do, I think Flacco can help the team win football games. The real question is, can you win shootouts against your opponents? But we've talked about it, like the AFC with all of these teams underperforming. There's a chance that the Cincinnati Bengals could at least do some damage. I wouldn't put money on it though. If they get in, they would be the last team that gets in. But my concern is just Flacco is going to just get annihilated in the next couple of weeks because this offensive line is so bad.
I just don't think they do enough well. They don't run the ball. They don't defend anything. Run, pass, it doesn't matter. Just do anything against them. You will have success in doing so. And I think that the Packers will have plenty of success doing whatever it is they want to do this weekend. The one thing they could potentially do is throw the ball through the air, especially deep with Joe Flacco. So I think that's going to be their formula. Can you consistently score 30 points? can he do that occasionally? Yeah, I think Joe Flacco is capable of doing that. I think there will also be games where he hands the ball to the other team 3 to 4 times, and that's going to be too often for them to be able to make the playoffs with him as their quarterback this year.
Yeah, I don't see them getting to the playoffs with Joe Flacco. Cleveland's not the same situation because there's better weapons on the offensive side of the ball. There was enough there to where Flacco should have been able to look a little competent, and he didn't with Cleveland, and they had an excellent defense, and he couldn't get that team over the top. So, no, I don't expect him to get the Bengals over the top, get into the playoffs, and I'm saying that as someone that agrees with the sentiment of, hey, the AFC is very weak. Anybody has a chance to get that 7 seed. I still don't see it for Flacco and the Bengals.
Who's got a better chance, the Browns without Flacco or the Bengals with Flacco?
Browns.
The Bengals with Flacco, because I just don't think
Browns can stop people. Like, their defense, as we saw, can win them football games. If they can just get competent quarterback play from Gabriel or Sanders or whoever it might end up being.
I'm going to revise my answer. I think it is probably the Browns.
Mine's the Bengals. They've
got to stop people eventually.
I know, but they've got 2 elite playmakers. I think the Bengals, if Flacco is just average in terms of heaving the ball downfield, that offense has the potential to win shootout games.
All right, last thing that I wanted to get to. I thought Baker Mayfield had an interesting comment yesterday. So he talks trash. We know this, right? That's the Baker Mayfield thing. And there was a video that emerged coming out of the game against the Seahawks where he talked to a Seahawks fan just before kickoff. And then after the game, went back to that Seahawks fan and said something to them afterwards as well. I can't repeat everything that he said, but if you've seen the video, you know what I'm talking about. So he was asked about this, and he said, quote, early on in my career, when I did stuff like that, I was cocky, I was immature. Now I've got moxie, and people say that I'm a dog. Same bleep, different day. As long as you play well, they change the narrative, but you've got to be yourself, and I've always been like that. How do you feel about the way that Baker Mayfield is discussed now versus when he was early on in his career? And do you think it is purely a thing of, hey, he's playing better now, and so people like him more?
I think it's some of that, but I also think it was the hype of Baker Mayfield coming into the season. Like coming into it, when you're the first overall pick, people look at you and you're like, oh, you were going to be the next Hall of Famer. And then you didn't live up to it with the team. Frankly, he came to a bad team, so good luck trying to get that working.
I think he kind of did early on. He helps them make the playoffs.
Yeah, and if you're the Cleveland Browns, that's good, but I just feel like the cockiness on the Cleveland Browns just didn't match what people were expecting with Baker Mayfield. And then I think, to me, the turning point for him was that Rams season. I think when people saw him come in and help the Rams win one football game, and it was like, oh, this guy is what Baker said, a dog. And then he goes to Tampa Bay and he just continues that narrative. I just think the hype for a first overall pick is always there, and if you don't live up to it, then people are out on you.
Yeah, I think he's right. I agree with him. I think it is purely about the performance. Because I remember early on, people were in on Baker Mayfield. That's how we got all the commercials that we see him in now, right?
Yeah.
Like, people liked this. At least some did. Some hated it as well, but that's okay. Like, you're going to have people that like it. You're going to have people that hate it. When you talk, like the Diego Pavia has this in college right now, where he talked before the game. He practices his taking the victory formation pregame against Alabama. And when you win, you get to say whatever you want afterwards. And you get to talk about celebrating on Broadway and all of these different things. And people love that. And if you lose, then people get to say whatever they want to about you. You have earned that, right? Like, that's Baker Mayfield. If you're going to talk the way that he does, if you're going to act the way that he does, well, if you don't back it up with performance, then you also have to deal with whatever comes there criticism-wise. And he didn't back it up always with performance. I think early on he did, the first few seasons in Cleveland, and then it started to change. And as, you know, Odell Beckham went to the wayside and the Browns started having some of their slide in terms of their overall success or failures there, I think that's when people started to turn on him. But now that we're seeing him play well again, and over the last 2 years, he's now thrown 51 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. Yeah, that'll get people to buy back in.
Yeah, I think it does come down to, are you winning as a team, and are you winning or are you performing well as a player? Because I look back to, it's different, but I remember Miles Michaelis in his checkbook baseball comment, right? Before they opened up with the Dodgers last season, I think it was. I'm like, Miles, what are you talking about? The Dodgers are clearly a better team. The Cardinals are a team that I did not think was very good, and Michaelis hadn't pitched well the season prior. So I was upset about him talking trash when he had nothing to stand on. When you're Baker Mayfield, you're able to do that. So, yeah, I think it just comes down to, are you winning? And are you performing well as a player? If not, yeah, people aren't going to like what you do. And I think you could even see that in like the NHL if you were to follow like the Kachuk brothers, right? If the Kachuk brothers were doing their antics and they weren't winning on the ice, people would view them a little bit differently than they are viewed today.
No doubt. He's T-Bone, that's Alex, I'm BK. Coming up next, how should the Cardinals approach their catching depth this offseason? And is this time actually going to be different with Yadi? Are we really going to see him in the dugout for the Cardinals next year? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Blues home opener. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So the Cardinals have a lot of catchers in their system. A lot of them.
No, they don't. They're actually outfielders or first basemen.
Ivan Herrera is apparently going to try to play catcher again next year. You've got Pedro Pajes. You've got Jimmy Crooks. Those are the major league side of things. Then you've got Leo Bernal. You've got Rynel Rodriguez down in the minor league level as well. These are all legit prospects for the St. Louis Cardinals right now. And eventually you're going to have to filter through these options and decide who are we keeping, who are we moving out. Derek Gould in his chat earlier this week said there are other teams out there that are asking the Cardinals about, hey, what's your plan here? What are you going to do with your catching depth? Alex, how do you think that the Cardinals should approach this in the offseason?
I think they should be looking at it aggressively in terms of trades. I think when you realistically, if I'm Chaim Bloom, I'm looking and projecting, and I would say, well, Rodriguez is the one that we're hoping can become the catcher of the future. The offense that he has shown, we can work with him on the defensive side. That's the guy, and I think he's climbed into the top 20 in terms of prospects?
Top 50.
Top 50, is that what it was? But he continues to rise. That would be the guy that I'm looking at saying, well, that's the guy we're waiting for. How do we get there? Well, we've got Ivan Herrera who's going to be there for now. I don't know how long that's going to last. Frankly, I would say until a position opens up for Ivan Herrera to be first base, which I guess I don't know how that's going to work with Burleson. Then you got all that mush in between. You've got the Crooks, Bernal. You've got the Pajes. You've got the Pozo. If I'm the Cardinals, a lot of teams want catchers. And a lot of teams want catchers that can provide offense. And that's what it seems like they have in their system. Man, that might be the key to unlocking another player in another area that you're weak in, whether it's on the pitching side or the position player side. If I'm them, I'm looking at that mushy middle of catchers and saying, let's see what we can go find on the trade market with these guys.
I feel like the trade bait possibility is from that Bernal, Pajes, and Crooks group. Mm-hmm. That to me would be the three
Pajes
that I would consider.
Probably be number one because he's got the major league experience.
I think it just depends on the return.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody says, hey, for Leo Bernal, we'll give you something of significance on the pitching side of things, like the equivalent prospect-wise, double-A pitcher with high upside, we'll give that to you. And Chaim Bloom looks at it and says, I think this guy can be a number 3 starter for us at the major league level. And not just like your current Cardinals number 3 starter, but like an actual good number 3 starter for them. That's something I would consider. And you're flipping prospects, but you're going from a position of strength to a position of need. Because what's the scenario in which Leo Bernal becomes the starting catcher for the Cardinals in 2026 or 2027? I suppose it's possible, but you have so many other options. I don't feel as though you need to count on that. So that would be a spot that I would be looking at potentially dealing from your position of strength. I'll tell you what I would not do is trade Ivan Herrera this offseason.
No.
That's not something that I'm particularly interested in.
That's a guy I'm building around if I'm the Cardinals.
Absolutely. And I don't know where he lands. I don't know if he's ultimately going to be a catcher long-term, first base, DH, outfield. I have no idea where he lands. I know what the dude can do, though, and that's mash. He is somebody that has the highest upside of any of the right-handed bats that are close to or in the major leagues right now. I can't trade that when I'm depleted of right-handed options at the major league level.
If I'm the Cardinals, I look at Herrera as the next Contreras. I look at him as my first baseman because Burleson has shown me the strides as a manager. If I'm Marmol, saying, well, that guy worked his ass off in the offseason to be an outfielder, and he was our left fielder in the second half of the season last year. Great. When we move on from Nootbaar, Burleson is our left fielder, and we're building with that. And then Herrera, whatever you decide to do with Contreras, I think Herrera is the first baseman. But that's the same thing that the Blues just did with Fowler and locked him up for a couple of years. Herrera behind the plate allows you time to let Rodriguez continue to develop so that in a couple of years, whether it's 2 or 3, when you're ready to start that winning, that's when Rodriguez is ready to take over that spot and Herrera can be that first baseman for you.
Yeah, I think you're looking to choose between Crooks, Pajes, and Bernal. Of those 3 would be the ones that I'm looking at depth-wise that you're looking to trade. And where they're at right now kind of reminds me where they were at when they had Kelly and Kisner as the next guys that were behind Yadi at the time.
Yep.
Now, I don't think they're going to be doing what they did with Kelly, where they go out and they get a superstar in Paul Goldschmidt this offseason. It is probably more the route BK's talking about, where they are trading more from depth to go out and acquire high upside potential, like double-A, maybe even lower than that potentially what you're looking for. But I think it makes sense to do that because they've got to start choosing on some of these guys. And sometimes it's better to choose early, right? Because the moment a player gets to the big leagues, there's a chance he loses his value like when you drive a car off of a lot, right? When you buy that new car, it loses value the moment it's off the lot. That can happen for catchers as well, because immediately you could see teams where they say, hey, yeah, this guy's not good at calling a game, or boy, this guy's offense, we think we see a hole that's not going to translate well. Minor leagues, you don't have as good a sense on that as you do once they get to the big leagues.
All right, so we got to talk about the report, which came out yesterday. This is via a Spanish language reporter. So this is via translation. Just want to make sure that that is relayed, because sometimes things can be lost in that translation. But according to this report, El Vocero, I believe is how you pronounce it, they said, quote, right now, this is from Yadi Molina, right now we're in contact with the St. Louis Cardinals to coach the Cardinals and help Ollie Marmol. He's still the manager, but I would be there by his side. Nothing is concrete yet, but we're working on it. He did not specify the role that he would play with the St. Louis Cardinals. That's pretty much the entirety of the report. There's more in this story, but there's not really a whole lot more in terms of specifics on what this would mean for Yadi or for the Cardinals. We've talked about this before. Yadier Molina a couple of years ago was apparently supposed to be with the club pretty regularly throughout spring training, and then I think he showed up once on like the last day of spring training.
Spring training. It was twice in the season, though.
And then last year, he showed back up a couple of times, was in the dugout with Ollie Marmol as a special guest of his in uniform for the Cardinals, and was around the team, and they talked about how much that meant for the guys for him to be around. How much does this matter? How much do you care? How much are you buying it? You can kind of take this story in whichever direction, Alex, but it's big news for Cardinals fans that Yadier Molina maybe is going to be around the club more often next year again.
I mean, look, there's more positives than negatives on this, in my opinion. Like, to have a Yadier Molina around your organization is not a bad thing. And I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories or soap opera drama that comes with this because, he's going to take Ollie's job. To me, I don't care about that. I just want his mind around the players. Whatever happens is going to happen. There's going to be tons of narrative surrounding Molina if he's a part of this coaching staff, because it's 1 year left of Ollie Marmol. I think it's good for the organization to have him, and I also think it's probably good for Yadi. If you want to be a manager, you don't just jump right into it to be a manager. You're going to have to be a part of a staff at some point. How it works, I don't know. To me, Yadi made it pretty evident that he didn't want to be a part of a team until his son kind of took that next step. So he wanted to be around his son throughout his younger years with baseball. Seemingly, it would sound like, okay, well, now he's taking the next step. So if Yadi's around, I think you're probably looking at him being some type of instructor, but more so than what he's been in the past, where you just show up at times.
Yeah, it would be a good thing to have him around, I believe, and I do agree is what needs to be the first step for him probably to become a manager. But like this report, I don't read too much into it. Don't care. I'll believe Yadi's on the Cardinals coaching staff when the Cardinals make the announcement, because this has been noise over ever since he retired, really. This has been noise that Yadi could be joining the coaching staff, and I've yet to see it. BK's right. He showed up to spring training on like the last day as an advisor, and there's always this kind of noise, whether it's be reporting or in the background that we hear. I won't buy into it until I see the official tweet from the Cardinals or the official press release that says Yadier Molina is joining the staff, and here is his exact role. Oh, and by the way, he will be here for 162 games.
There was also the report, I think it was more speculation, that he could potentially be on Albert Pujols' staff in L.A. as well. I wonder if this is the offseason where he does make the jump. And he says, I'm going to join a team, and now it's about which team am I joining. Am I going to go to L.A. if Albert ends up getting that job as the manager? Do I go back to the Cardinals? What's my plan? I would be really curious to find out what the role is. I mean, you have a bench coach right now in Daniel Descalso. He's a good one. People value him. There's talk of him potentially being a managerial candidate for some other teams this offseason. If he does not get that job, though, and he's back as your bench coach, is Yadi just coming on to be like a
coach number 2?
Catching coordinator kind of thing?
He's just going to be a roving instructor. And I mean, honestly, I think it's just going to be probably what it's been, of like, come when you were wanting to. But maybe it's going to be a look, there needs to be more appearances of Yadier Molina. Like, Yadi signing or joining the staff is still Yadi's decision of what do you want to do.
I'm not sure. I think if you're in Ollie's shoes, like, listen, if you want to be around, like, you can come and go as you please. But if you're going to be on my staff, you're here every day. Mm-hmm. That's the role. That's what you're choosing to do here. And if you're not comfortable with that, dude, that's totally fine. Again, we are more than happy to have you here as a guest instructor, as many times as you'd like to be here next year. And you're always going to have that open door policy with us. But if you want to be a part of our staff, it's an everyday role. You have to be here. Is Yadi willing to, A, take that on? Is he ready for that? And B, is he willing to take that on if he's not the bench coach? Because there is something about like the respect that comes with that role, and not just like the title, but also the money that comes along with it. And I wonder, are you going to take on basically what John Jay was? Where you're just an instructor. You're just one of the coaches that's on the staff. Is he going to be like the first base coach for the Cardinals next year? Is that how Yadier Molina's coaching career in Major League Baseball begins?
Isn't that how Ollie's began?
Yeah, but Ollie wasn't.
Ollie was
Hall
going
of
through the
Fame.
minors, but it's different.
Well, I
It's
understand.
Yadier Molina.
Yeah,
I mean, if
Yadi.
you want to be at Major League, you might have to
can't
take on roles
I
like
can't
this.
name a player that has Yadi's pedigree that started as a first base coach. Like most of them either have bench coach role, which they take,
Or hitting coach.
or they go advisor route first and then they join a coaching staff. It's never like you look at some of the first base coaches around the league. John Jay, good player, not a Hall of Famer. Makes sense why he would take a roving instructor / first base coach role. Same with like Eric Young, who was a good baseball player. He took a first base coach job. Yadier Molina, a Hall of Famer, typically they don't go the route of going first base coach.
And to be fair, most of them just don't go into coaching.
Yes.
Because they have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank ready to go. And so they don't need this. They don't need the time commitment. They don't need the money. And they choose not to go down this path. So it's a fascinating storyline. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation surrounding it, but I think we're all on the same page. Let's wait until there's actually a firm report on him joining the staff before we start to jump to any of these real conclusions on what it's going to mean for the Cardinals in 2026. All right, with Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we're going to dive into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN. All right, boys, so you know that I watch Love is Blind, right? It's one of my guilty pleasure shows over on Netflix. It's a horrible show, but I enjoy it. I enjoy watching it because of how ridiculous it all is. The reason that I bring this up is because yesterday I think I witnessed one of the most disgusting, vile things that I have ever seen in any kind of filmed cinematography.
Oh, let's get into it on the radio.
So one of the individuals involved with this experiment, which is, for those that aren't familiar, they go into what are called pods, and they spend basically a week getting to know somebody else with a wall between them. So the idea is you fall in love with who they are as a person, not what they look like, right?
What a meaning.
Is this the one that you guys try to get me to go
Well,
audition?
no,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need to rephrase the "you guys." There's one person that on this show that tries to get you to watch that.
They're doing casting in St. Louis. This year was
You
in
were
Denver,
involved.
but soon
Oh,
they're
well, I
going to
want
be
you
doing
to do the casting.
potentially a
That's what I'm
St.
talking
Louis season. So yeah, T-Bone, I think you should absolutely be a
We're
part
trying
of
to
this.
find you love, man.
Then they meet, then they go on this honeymoon, quote unquote, in Mexico, and then they live with each other in an apartment and all of this different stuff, right? So these two are living together, and one of them, his name is Jordan. He's into fitness. You wouldn't necessarily see him as like the biggest like bodybuilder or anything, but he's into his fitness, right?
Oh, like me.
Yeah. So in the morning, he makes his breakfast, and you would typically expect, all right, this guy's into nutrition. Maybe he's going to make himself some eggs, whatever it is, right? Nope, this is a little different. He roasts chicken leading into the week, so he does his meal prep.
Okay.
And each morning, he wakes up, grabs one of the pieces of
Don't say
chicken
what you're about
breast.
to say.
He grabs a Crystal Light lemonade,
If you don't,
adds in a little
know
bit
where
of
he's going.
water,
I know
puts
exactly
it all
where
into a
he's
NutriBullet,
Oh.
God,
Oh.
no.
blends it up,
Oh, God.
and then chugs it.
Oh, no.
Is this a thing? Did I miss something that people actually do this?
I mean,
I
it's
wanted to
protein.
throw up
Protein.
the moment that I saw him do this on the show. I was like, I cannot believe, like, every step it got worse. First it was like, all right, you're going to drink Crystal Light. That's fine. And then he got out the chicken, and I was like, that's weird. Like, what are you doing with this chicken? Are you just eating cold chicken for breakfast?
Been there before.
Whatever, it is what it is. And then he threw it into the blender, and
So
just all of it was disgusting.
So we
to
did the
me.
blender with chicken for our daughters when they were like toddlers and like just getting food. Like we blended apples and chicken together, and like they ate it mushy, which was disgusting to me. But like the girls loved it. It was chicken and apples. The problem is when you're a grown individual and you're blending chicken into a
Yeah.
liquid.
Oh.
I thought you were gonna say he did the raw eggs, and like I used
I've
to
seen
do
that before. Oh,
like
that's
that was
disgusting.
that was in Rocky where he just chugs raw eggs.
Sure.
Now, of course, you're gonna get salmonella when you do it. But like
Yeah,
when
you
I was
shouldn't do that.
when I was in high school, I'm like, oh well, Rocky did it, so I'll try it. Did it once, vomited everywhere, and I'm like,
Oh
I'm
my
never doing that
God.
again. I thought that's what you were gonna say, and I'm like, okay, well, people do that.
I think I'm going to skip lunch now today.
And, like,
That's so disgusting.
So here's the thing, like I guess I can understand the blended chicken.
Why?
I
Why
mean,
not just eat the chicken?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Maybe
This
it's,
is what
it's
I don't
easier.
understand.
It's easier for people to digest, and you could do it fast. I don't know. You got to.
What?
The problem is the Crystal Light too. Like,
Yeah, why?
how does that mesh with chicken?
It doesn't.
Like, is that just your lunch, and you're just gonna blend it and eat it for breakfast?
I think the idea is you're trying to mask the taste, I guess.
Or you're
but now-
making it really liquided down, and that's how you get it down to.
Oh.
Because I guess if it's just chicken, it's dry and it would never get into mush. But yeah, I knew you were gonna go to the blending side of it, and I'm
I
like,
had no
oh, that's
idea.
the- Oh, I knew it.
I had no idea where we were going. I'm
When-
like, why is BK telling me the story of this guy eating chicken
When he,
with a drink?
when he said he pulled rotisserie chicken and Crystal Light, I'm like, oh god, he's gonna blend it.
636 said that's a new punishment idea.
No,
Ugh.
I couldn't do it. I would throw up immediately.
Someone told me
I'm
that we
sorry.
should try the what is it? I can't remember what they call it, but it's like the same thing. It's the Thanksgiving one where you take the leftovers and you blend it all together and you make them drink it as a punishment. So you got
I
your
think we
mashed
should do it.
potatoes, turkey,
Dude,
some
don't
gravy,
puke because I'm a
stuffing.
what's it called? An emotional puker. So if somebody
Emotional.
pukes, I puke as well.
Emotional. I don't think that's the right.
I don't
word.
know what the word is, but whatever it is, when somebody vomits, I vomit with them. So like, don't, man.
Some angry Dan on the text line said Kurt from TMA, KG applied for the show when they're coming out here as well.
Good for Kurt.
T-Bone, I need to get you.
But you tell
to
me these people are
apply.
awful people.
Most of them are, yeah. This season has been, definitely one of my least favorite seasons of the show thus far. For anybody else that's watching, no spoilers, I promise. But it hasn't been as compelling. There's definitely been some drama, though. Early on, there were a few people that left the experiment without even telling their connections. It's been crazy. All right, coming up in about 15 minutes.
Come on, T-Bone. We're just trying to find you. How are you going to find
Why don't
love
you-
if you don't do it
that's what
this
Why
way?
don't you guys just set me up with a friend or something and not send me out on an
You think
audition?
I have friends?
Well, maybe not you.
I don't have friends. All of my friends are married.
T-Bone, I'm a little worried about you going full rhino into one of my friends that's single right now.
That's
so
actually
I-
a very good point. Come on, man. This is how you find
I
love.
cut down on the rhinoing thing, okay?
I don't know, man.
I just realized that I said that without any context whatsoever, and now there are people in their cars that have no idea what we're talking
They're
about.
urban dictionarying what rhinoing means.
And I think maybe that's a better way to go about it.
Ooh, I'm
Coming
gonna check
up
that out, actually.
in 15 minutes, don't do that on a work computer. Can Mizzou's pass rush do
anymore.
enough to impact Ty Simpson in this game? But next, what would a successful season look like for Jimmy Snuggerud this year? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
BK and Ferrario.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So we've talked all offseason about Jimmy Snuggerud, what he's going to be for the St. Louis Blues this season. It's pretty rare that you see a guy at his age playing on the top line, not just for any team, but for a legitimate contender in the NHL. So Alex, in your mind, what would a successful season look like for Jimmy Snuggerud?
North of 40 points and 20 goals. I think that's what I would go for a successful season of Snuggerud. Maybe the Brandon Saad territory where all he did was score and not pick up any assists, but I don't think that's going to be Snuggerud. I looked at Matthew Nyes earlier when we were prepping for the show, and I said, would you take this? He had 15 goals. I think it was 37 points with the Maple Leafs that first full season. He did the same as Snuggerud where he played a few games, made it to the first round of the playoffs, and then the next full season. And I asked if that would be successful. And you guys made a great point. Because originally I was going to be like, look, I'd be okay with this. But Nyes did that on the third line. Imagine being a top-line player where you're playing with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich on the number one power play. So I think if we're talking success for Jimmy Snuggerud, it's at minimum 20 goals and 40-plus points. And that also puts you, in my opinion, as a top-3 team in the Central.
So I've got another comparison for you. Different player. We haven't talked a whole lot about. Different positionally, so that's something you should probably take into account here. But
Wait, you compared him to a defenseman?
yeah, no, of course
Cale
not.
McCarr?
Wyatt Johnston.
Oh,
Wyatt Johnston with the Dallas Stars, year one, played 82 games that season, finished with 24 goals, 41 points, was a +6. Now, he primarily played center. He played a lot of center that year, and he also only played 15 and a half minutes per night. And that's something that I'm having a hard time with, Alex, is, man, if he's going to be on the top line all season long, talking about Jimmy Snuggerud, I almost think it needs to be more than that. Like, I think he probably needs to produce close to 60 points.
Ooh.
If not more.
No, I'm not going to say that to be successful. I mean, that would be outperforming what my expectations are.
I'm talking about if he's going to be on that top line all year long. Because, man, like, you need production from that top line. If Robert Thomas is going to be the player that we're expecting him to be, it has to come from somewhere. So whether that is Jimmy Snuggerud or Pavel Buchnevich taking another step forward, they've got to find a way to get somebody to produce on that line. So, T-Bone, I know it's a lot to ask, but again, if we are making the starting point is the assumption Snuggy's playing, let's call it 65-plus games on the top line this year, I think he needs to be a 50-plus point producer at a minimum this season.
yeah, I think I agree, because if you're on that top line, you're right. You've got to produce, and I don't think you can get away with putting up like the Matthew Nyes numbers that Alex had kind of first brought up to us. You need to be a threat goal-scoring-wise and also be a playmaker on that top line. Otherwise, you're going to be down on that third line, and that's what we've been talking about, like when you think back to last year when they had Neighbors on that top line. This isn't a shot against Jake Neighbors, but that top line wasn't at the level that it needed to be at. I think you're right. I'm thinking like 25 goals and like 60 points from him if you're going to call it a success on that top line. Now, is that a lot to ask from a guy
Absolutely,
that's
of
below
course.
the age of 22? Yeah, but like they think he's a player, and if you think that Jimmy Snuggerud is ready for the NHL and can play with Robert Thomas, he's going to have to do that to remain on that top line.
I think the part that we're underestimating is I don't think he's going to be there for 82 games on that top line. And Jim Montgomery said this yesterday. He said, look, I do this with all my players. If you're playing poorly, you're going to drop down. If you're playing well, you're going to move up. So there's realistically a chance, because they've emphasized this, and I do think it's something that people need to keep in mind. This is his first time playing 82 games in an entire season. He's used to playing, what is it in hockey, like 25, 30 games that they play? Like, this is very unnatural for a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud. Plus, you've got a condensed schedule with the Olympics. And I know these sound like excuses, but this is where it's at when you got a young guy and he's experienced it for the first time. So there are nights you're going to see Jimmy Snuggerud playing on the third line. There are nights that he's going to start on the first line and maybe not play a shift in the second period. This is the coaching element that Jim Montgomery is going to take advantage of, which is why at the end of the season, I don't think you're going to be looking at a guy that was playing average 19 minutes a night.
Who takes that spot then?
I think it's going to be a combination between Holloway, Kyrou, and Neighbors. I think that's the flexibility of this team to where Neighbors is probably going to get a shot up there if Snuggerud dips at times. Holloway might go up there if that line's not producing, or Kyrou. We've seen Montgomery do this in the past where he doesn't like the way a line looks and he goes back to Old Faithful, Buchnevich, Thomas, and Kyrou.
Yeah, that makes me nervous because I think that second line is part of what gives you the ceiling this year. Yeah. I think Holloway and Kyrou get the most out of one another, and I think that should be your combination. And if you don't have this line, this top line, if it does not work, for me, and I can only speak for myself, it would change a little bit about my expectations for the Blues going into this season. I think this line needs to click. It's why when you said earlier today, Alex, the guy that changes the ceiling for you is Pavel Buchnevich, I agree. I think that guy really needs to put together a successful season and get back to what he has been prior to last year. Get back to what he was, where he was a 65-plus point producer at a minimum every season with great defense and all of these other things that we know he can bring to the table, because I don't want that second line getting broken apart. More specifically, I don't want Holloway and Kyrou getting broken apart. And if Neighbors is now suddenly on that top line with Thomas and Booch, it just changes the way that I view that line. I like Neighbors a lot. I think he's an overqualified third liner, but I think that's where you want him. If you are a true contender, I don't know that he's a guy that I see as a legitimate top-line player right now.
Not for an entire season, but temporarily, I think you can get advantage of that, and you can exploit matchups. Because if my third line is a Bukestad, Snuggerud, and Pius Suter or Braden Shen, that's a line that you can exploit mismatches at times. And I do think this is what Jim Montgomery is going to do. He's going to be playing chess while other teams are playing checkers to try and get those best matchups. I think for a majority of the season, Snuggerud's going to be on that top line. If I were to pick a guy that might dip off of it, it would be Buchnevich before Snuggerud. But I do believe Jim Montgomery loves that flexibility. We've seen it in the past. And there will be nights where Snuggerud gets a look with Holloway on a second line, or Snuggerud gets a look on the third line, and Neighbors gets a look at the top line. When things go stale, and they will go stale offensively, this team's not going to put up buku numbers for an entire year. How does he try and mix and match, and do those players take advantage of those opportunities?
It just makes me nervous. The fact that you are relying so heavily upon a first-year full-time player, that makes me nervous a little bit. And the idea of him potentially not living up to expectations, for me, it's one of my biggest fears going into the 2025 season is, what if this doesn't work? What if it doesn't go up to expectations? Which would be totally understandable, by the way. I'm not saying Snuggy's going to be some kind of a failure throughout his career because he couldn't live up to the expectations of being a top-line player at the age of 21. Matthew Nyes is a player that you brought up, Alex. Those numbers, just for him, if I'm exclusively just talking about, hey, Jimmy Snuggerud's career, would that be a successful first season? Probably. For the 2025 St. Louis Blues, would that be enough? That is where my answer changes, and my answer would then be, no, I don't think that is a successful season for what the Blues need out of that player in that slot in their lineup. It puts so much more pressure then on everybody else that is around him heading into this season. All right, coming up next, speaking of pressure, Mizzou's feeling that right now. Mizzou has a massive game on Saturday against Alabama, the kind of matchup that we haven't seen in Columbia in almost 50 years. What is it going to take for Missouri's defense to slow down this Alabama passing attack? We'll get into that coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Broadcasting live at Enterprise Center on 101 ESPN.
All right, Alex. There's the old football adage that you're supposed to act like you've been here before, right?
So I've heard.
So
Alabama's
what do you
not
do when
acting
you
like
literally haven't? Because this is newfound territory for me as a Missouri fan. This weekend, what we are about to see is the first matchup in Columbia between two teams that are ranked in the top 15 since 1979. Let me repeat that one more time. Not once have we seen in Columbia two teams play that are ranked in the top 15 in the AP poll since 1979. Missouri's in the top 15 right now, as is Alabama. This is the kind of matchup that you typically do not expect to see in Columbia. So, yeah, literally, since I've been born, I haven't seen this before, where Missouri's highly rated and the opposing team coming in is highly rated. So the anticipation could not be any higher. There are so many Mizzou fans that all they want, they so desperately just want to be taken seriously. They want the respect that they feel as though their team has earned by going 26-5 in their last 31 games. Normally, that gets teams a lot of respect. There's only like 3 teams in the country that have been better in their last 31 games than Missouri. This is the game where that can happen. A top 15 marquee opponent coming in like Alabama. If you beat them, you'll get the respect that you deserve. You want Ahmad Hardy to be in the conversation for the Heisman? That's on the table if he has a big game and a win this weekend against Alabama. You want your coach to be respected the way that so many others are nationally? Get yourself a signature victory against a team like this. You'll be able to get some of that respect.
I just want A.J. McCarron to pronounce my quarterback properly. That's all I want.
He's going to have to know his name.
I don't know if
you win on Saturday. And Alex, I think one of the key factors in this game, maybe the key factor in this game, is what Missouri is able to do defensively against Alabama's passing attack. You look at what Ty Simpson has been so far this year. This is not your typical Nick Saban type of Alabama offense. They're not a ground and pound game. They're like top 10 in the country right now in terms of overall passing. Ty Simpson has completed 70% of his passes, 13 touchdowns, 1 interception on the season. Pretty damn good. His top 2 weapons are both in the top 5 in the SEC in receiving yards so far this season. Missouri's secondary, meanwhile, last time we saw them play a real game, Drinkwitz finished his press conference by saying, that crap's got to get fixed. Do you think they have enough defensively to slow down this Alabama passing attack?
Secondary-wise, no, I don't. If this is a game through the air, Mizzou's going to lose. But I do think they have enough in terms of their defensive line to make life miserable for Ty Simpson. Like they did this for Lenore Sellers. Right? Like they were in his face that entire game. They didn't allow him to scramble and create offense other than a couple of deep throws, but that's the concern if you're Mizzou secondary. So I think for this game to be successful, involve the secondary as little as possible or provide them the support with your front 4 so that the linebackers don't have to blitz, so where you're basically just relying on your secondary pieces. All you need to focus on are 4 guys going after Ty Simpson and making him rush those plays. That's where Mizzou can be successful.
Yeah, it's kind of what Illinois had to do against USC now. They gave up 400-plus yards in total offense, so I wouldn't tell you it was executed to a T. But I said it coming into the game, what they had to do was they had to get their pass rush, their 4 down linemen had to get to the quarterback so they could sit back in coverage because they were not going to win across the board man-to-man. And that's what they ended up doing. And for the most part, it kind of worked. The other thing, too, that you're going to have to take advantage of, if you don't get to the quarterback and you do get forced to start sending linebackers in on that blitz, you have to make sure you can force turnovers as well. That's the big reason why Illinois won that football game against USC. It wasn't because their defense did what we're talking about, which was get to the quarterback, slow down the passing attack. No, they forced 2 turnovers. And that doesn't have to be interceptions either. That can be forcing a fumble when the wide receiver gets the ball in space. So those are the key factors that they're going to have to do in this one because I think you're right. I think if they have to start sending linebackers, they got to start sending more creative blitzes. I think it's going to be a long day for the Tigers defense.
So these are some numbers on Ty Simpson, the quarterback for Alabama, when kept clean versus under pressure. When kept clean this season, this all comes via Pro Football Focus. He's completing 75% of his passes. When under pressure, 53%. When kept clean this season, he's averaging 10 yards per attempt. When under pressure, 7.5. When kept clean this season, 12 touchdowns, 1 interception. When under pressure, 1 touchdown, no interception so far this year. He's actually, like, compared to most quarterbacks, pretty decent under pressure because most quarterbacks perform incredibly poorly when under pressure. So relative to the norm, he's okay at it. But he's a hell of a lot worse than he is when he's kept clean. And this is why I agree with what you guys have been saying. It all comes down to the pass rush. Missouri this year, they're 2 defensive ends. I had some questions early on in the season, like, are they as good as we maybe hyped them up to be? And Damon Wilson and Zion Young, and then Darius Smith gets out there as well for some pass rush situations. The top 2 guys in Wilson and Zion Young, they have been great. But what they have not been able to do so far this year is just truly pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And the reason why is because when you get out of your rush lanes against Jalen Daniels, or when you're going up against a guy like Lenore Sellers, dude, they're going to hurt you with their legs. They are a nightmare matchup for every defense because they are so effective, not just as scramblers, but as runners. They can convert from a thrower to a runner like that. Ty Simpson's a scrambler. He's got some athleticism. If you give him a lane, he'll pick up his 8, 10, 12 yards, and he'll slide and get out of there. But he's more of an effective scrambler than a runner. And so I do think this may be the week that you really get to feel that Mizzou pass rush come to life because they don't have to worry as much about the running game from the quarterback as they've had to against the only 2 other real opponents that they've had on their schedule so far.
Yeah, I think that's what intrigues me most about this matchup is how they handle a quarterback with this type of skill, because we saw it with Sellers, but Sellers really wasn't 100%, I guess, in that game. He was coming off of that injury, and I think he was still great in that game, but it was like this is Ty Simpson feeling it at his best. And I personally think this defensive line, and you've said it before, this is as good as Mizzou's had in a while in terms of those front guys that can make the quarterback's life a living hell.
And let's not undersell either that South Carolina with Sellers, like those wide receivers aren't getting open as quick as Alabama.
No.
So he's going to hold the ball a lot longer, which can lead to some of the kind of boneheaded sacks that you would see him take in that pocket. Simpson, these guys are going to get open, right? These guys are going to get to that quick break off of that line of scrimmage. They're going to make that one cut and get open. Like you got to admit that's going to happen. It's a matter of when they try for the big play, can you get to the quarterback so they don't
I was
hurt it?
surprised to see Simpson holds on to the ball longer than you'd expect. He's around 3 seconds per play, which is a little above average in terms of how long he holds on to the ball. Some of that is because of the design of the offense. They do a lot of rollout stuff. They do some screen game that takes a little bit longer to develop than some other schools. But I was surprised to see that yesterday. I was looking into some of this stuff to figure out kind of how the Missouri pass rush would be able to get after him, because I thought the same thing. I was like, yeah, he's just going to dink and dunk all day long. And if I was Alabama, honestly, it's something I would incorporate more this week, is try to get into some of that more rhythm passing game. From the 3-1-4, and Alex, I apologize, I did cut you off. I do want to get your thoughts on this as well. They said Alabama does not have a terrible offensive line like you're implying. I hope it doesn't sound as though I've been implying that whatsoever. This is about Missouri's pass rush, not about Alabama's offensive line. It's the same way that I feel about, I don't know, like a great pitcher. When you have a great starting pitching staff, it doesn't necessarily matter what the opposing team's lineup is. Your pitching should be better. When you have an excellent pass rush, if you're going up against J.J. Watt in his prime, Aaron Donald, whoever it may be, they're going to win. They're just going to be better than you on 5, 10, 15 plays over the course of the game, and you hope that doesn't get you beat. For Missouri's defensive line, I don't care who the opposition is. They're talented enough that they should be able to beat them. So that's what I'm saying. Alabama's offensive line is not terrible. It's, I would say, average to above average for the SEC this year. It's not great the way that it has been in the past,
right?
But it's not terrible. This is about Missouri taking it upon themselves and taking it personally to go out there and win. All right, Alex.
I was just going to add on to what we were talking about. It's also the reason why we talked yesterday, why Drinkwitz needs to be aggressive, and why I'm going to be watching his game management. Like, if you know that to be true, to where it's like, man, we're going to be in for it because of how good these receivers are and how good Simpson is when he's under pressure like this, then you need to be ready to be aggressive when you've got those areas in front of you. Because if you want to win this football game and make it competitive, it's going to come down to you being aggressive, not passive with some of your decisions.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN, and we are broadcasting live today from Enterprise Center, where the Blues will take the ice this evening to take on the Minnesota Wild, a game that you'll hear full coverage of right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN.
Gator said Alex is wearing Bama colors.
I mean, kind of.
That's really why I put this suit on today. Go Roll Tide, baby.
Yeah, Roll Tide. I'm with you there.
Come on, Gator.
Coming
I'm not
up
wearing
next.
Gator colors.
What is the thing that you are most excited about for the 2025 Blue season? And what is the thing that in the back of your mind you're thinking to yourself, I'm a little fearful of that and I want to see what it looks like? We'll get into that coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Center before the Blues home opener. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
We are just a few hours away from the Blues taking the ice against the Minnesota Wild right here at Enterprise Center, where Alex Ferrario will have your pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock tonight on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Bradford Bruns back in the studio for us today. Alex, we're going to do a very simple segment here.
I love simple. I always understand these.
We'll begin with what you're most excited about for the St. Louis Blues in 2025, and we'll finish it off by, what are you a little nervous about? What's in the back of your mind? And it's that intrusive thought that you think about heading into this season. So let's start with the positive before we get to the negative.
Can I get some clarification first? Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I want to see
first.
if we could piss BK off on a Thursday for opening night.
The thing you're most excited about heading into 2025 Blues season is blank.
A little more clarification here. It's the talent on the offensive side. What I'm most intrigued by is the skill set of these forwards, because for the last, I guess I would say 4 years, maybe 5, they haven't had this type of skill from their forwards. And what I mean by that is you've got an elite shot of Jimmy Snuggerud. You've got the elite playmaking skills of Robert Thomas. Then on top of it, you add in Dylan Holloway, what he did in his all-around game last year. We're talking like third-line roles right now of Nick Bukestad's size and how they can utilize that. Neighbors' ability to play the power forward role. This, to me, is the most talented group of forwards they have had in a while. So I think the offense's ceiling is through the roof of what they can do, and that's what I'm most intrigued and interested by this season, is I want to see what this skill set can do on offense.
Mine was the same, and also the fact that I feel like if it does click well, especially on that top line, like you might see the emergence of the star that we've been talking about they're missing. And I mean that with Robert Thomas, right? Like we've talked about it. If Thomas has Snuggerud on that line all season long and he ends up playing up towards Calder Trophy, being a Calder Trophy candidate, there's a chance that Thomas is a point-per-game player, but also is potentially between 90 and 100 points this season. And if Snuggerud's the guy that we think, like, you could be talking about a 30-goal scorer at the age of, 21 years old, and you mentioned their depth, like, it feels like it's the deepest since they were that 21-22 team when they had 9 20-goal scorers. I think that's where their excitement lies this season.
You got 2 top 9 forwards that are playing in the American Hockey League right now, and at some point might emerge as NHL players for you.
The thing that I'm most excited about is just to be able to analyze and discuss a team with expectations again. We go into the season knowing that this team is good, and that after every game, after this game tonight, we're going to go on the air tomorrow, and we're going to talk about what happened and what it means for now. Mm-hmm. Not for 2028, not for 2029, and I'm not even just comparing this to what the Cardinals are and have been. I'm comparing it also to what the Blues were and had been recently. Like, you went into last year, we had no idea what that team was going to be. You had Drew Bannister as the head coach. You had a bunch of unknowns, including at the time, don't forget, Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg, who felt like future pieces as much as they were for the here and now. Yeah, maybe they can help you now, but this wasn't a team that was expected last season to be a real playoff contender. And then suddenly everything changed, and we know the story of the season. They go into this season as a playoff expectation.
Yeah.
That's where things have changed, as you go in knowing coach is in place, core is in place, this team should be able to win, and we can analyze them accordingly. So for me, that's what I'm most excited about, is we get to watch hockey that matters again, and it matters from the day that the season begins, which has not been the case in 3 years here in St. Louis.
Yeah, I'll read a text, and I won't disclose their name, but I'll read a text from somebody who covers the NHL. He said, "The Blues are my dark horse to win the Cup this year." And I hope I can say this. Bradford, if I can't, just dump it. Those dudes are dudes and not punk asses.
Yeah, you can say that.
That's what an individual who covers the NHL believes about the Blues this season. So, yeah, I mean, you're right. There's no more of, well, what's it going to look like at the deadline, and what is it going to look like when Dvorsky's ready? No, Dvorsky he's not here. He's out of sight, out of mind. Now it's what happened in this game tonight and how do they get better with it. They've got the coach in place. They've got the core in place. They've got the right players in the right positions at the right age. Now it's just a matter of, can you open up that extended window that we saw the Blues do under Ken Hitchcock?
I'm not going to lie. When BK first started, I thought he was going to say, like, to see you, the fans,
Have
back in
fun
the
again.
arena for 41 games
I'm
like he did last year at the playoffs for, like, game whatever that was,
I'm
3 or 4.
excited for everyone in
I
St.
was like,
Louis
oh,
to
he's
have
not
fun.
about to just do this, is he?
No.
He kinda did.
I'm excited to be able to, like, when they lose and they look bad, to crush them. You know, like that's.
Whoa,
Yeah, let your anger out at him now.
That's what this team has earned. They've earned the right to be criticized, and I think that's good. You know, like you need to earn that. If Mizzou loses this weekend, they have earned the right to get criticized on Monday morning because they lost, because they fell short of expectations. And for the Cardinals, like, they haven't earned that right. When they lost down the stretch this year, we didn't talk about it because it didn't matter anymore. The game decisions weren't meaningful. The impact that individual players had, it was about 2026 and really about 27 and 28. I'm excited about the fact that we can actually break down what did and did not happen and why it matters for now, not for 2028. All right.
What I like about what you just said, though, is that's coming from the guy that came on the air when the Chiefs lost to the Jaguars and was like, oh, they're fixed. They're going to be great. They're going to be Super Bowl contenders.
Because they're not evaluated based upon regular season results. The only thing that matters is did they hoist the Lombardi Trophy or not. The Blues still very much are judged on regular season results right now.
I'm going to blast the Tigers if they come in and lose. But the Chiefs didn't beat the Jaguars, but they are fine.
They're not there yet. Let's get to a few playoff appearances. Keep taking these baby steps first. All right, what's your intrusive thought?
Intrusive thought is, God, is this defense going to be bad again? And honestly, like we've praised the Blues on the way that they have changed the defensive core and the outlook of what these guys could look like. But man, this intrusive thought has been there for 4 years of like, yeah, but what if the defense still sucks and gives up backdoor tap-ins? Like, that is something that's always going to be there. And preseason, it doesn't matter, but they didn't look great in terms of their own end at times. Now, a lot of these dudes are playing juniors hockey right now, but Joey mentioned it. How good is this team in tight hockey games? Because if we're going to judge them as playoff contenders and a team that could potentially go on a run, man, you better be good in tight hockey games because you can't be winning stuff every night 5-4, 6-5. You need to see what you look like late in games. Do you blow leads once again? Their own play and their own end is still something that I'll always have intrusive thoughts until I see it for a full season.
So that is my number one, but to go different from it, that has kind of popped in my mind over the last couple of days, and we kind of talked about it a little bit in the open today. What if the top 6 isn't what we thought going into the season? Because what if, because I don't expect a Buchnevich bounce back, right? We talk about him getting back. I think he is more of what he's shown over the last 2 years than what he was prior. And if that's the case, on top of Snuggerud does have rookie struggles, and you're forced to, whether it is you bump both or just one, but let's say you move Holloway and Kyrou into that top line with Robert Thomas. Okay, well, now the second line, what do you do with that? And now there's serious questions about that top 6, and I think that's how they end up being more of what they were prior to the big winning streak last year, and they are more of the team that, like, DraftKings has them at, and I think it's 92.5 points this season, which would probably have them on the outside looking in. You know, I think that's how they end up becoming the team that doesn't make the playoffs and disappoints us based on expectations.
Alex is going to get mad at me, so I'm going to look this way.
No, look that way. It's better for content.
Come on, dude. If you're going to seriously do this crap again, you do it every year and you eat crow every season.
I haven't.
No, you have.
I don't think he has.
No, he has.
No.
Yeah.
No.
What if Binnington is what he was, like, a couple of years ago and not what he was last year?
You mean having a bad defense in front of him and giving up goals that nobody in the NHL can stop?
I know. That's how we view it. But I do think at the time it was fair to have some criticism of Jordan Binnington in the regular season. I will continue to go to my grave to the fact that, like, that dude's one of the top 3 goalies I want in the playoffs. I don't care what he did during the regular season. You get into a big spot, I want that guy in net. But during the regular season, there have been times in the past where it hasn't always looked the greatest. There are those, like, mid-season slumps. And he's had somebody that has been able to backfill it most of the time, and including last year with Joel Hofer. Hofer was a really good backup goalie for the Blues last season. One of my intrusive thoughts is this. What if Binnington has some regression this year? What if we start to see a little bit of decline there from what he was a year ago, when I know the overall numbers might not look excellent. Like, you look at it, it's a 900 save percentage. That's not going to jump off the page. We all watched it. He was good last year. That guy was awesome. He was rock solid. That's one of my intrusive thoughts right now. I know you hate it, and I know you disagree with everything that I just said,
fair.
and you don't believe that it's going to happen. I personally don't believe that it's going to happen. It's just one of those things, kind of like when I get onto the flight. I'm not expecting that we're actually going to hit another plane coming head on.
That'll never happen.
But it's an
just like this
intrusive
won't.
thought that, hey, what if we go and we spontaneously combust because we hit another plane?
When
in
did this
mid-
intrusive thought hit? Like when you walked into Enterprise, you're like, oh, I get the five that Bennington's just not going to be that guy
Oh
this
God!
year.
What if Bennington falls flat? I don't know.
It's always one of my thoughts on the Blues heading into the regular
I
season.
think-
It has been for a few years
I think
now.
the reason that that's not as much of an intrusive thought now is I think Joel Hofer's ready for that chance. And if Bennington does, because, I mean, you're not wrong. We talked about it last year. Like, December is the worst month for Jordan Bennington. It always seems to be December is the month that he struggles the most, and then he gets better down the stretch. In the early portion, he's fine. But that's what you have Joel Hofer for. And prior to last season, they haven't had a backup since Jake Allen that I've trusted. And so now they've got one that it's like, look, if he's got to play 15 games in a stretch because things just aren't going well, good. I think Hofer's ready for it. Plus, it gives me my mindset of like, yeah, Hofer's going to be a number one guy for this team. And if that falls flat, then they got bigger issues if you got two guys that struggle.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up next, we'll have the rewind here on 101 ESPN. guys missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app. That is where you can go to find it, and it is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
That 101 ESPN app is super easy to use. It is free to download, and it is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Alex, show for today, I would give it a solid 9.1. Always good to be out here at Enterprise Center, especially when we're here for the opener of the regular
You're
season.
insane. This is a 10.
Yeah, I knew you
Talk
would go
hockey almost all day. We're at Enterprise. They're practicing out the lights before the opening ceremony tonight. You guys are insane.
We're
Only
Scout
thing
out
that
the
would have
goals.
made it
Like
better
12.
is if we were able to get another hockey guest on, maybe in the 11 o'clock hour.
I don't know who you were. Oh, yeah, well, I can't control them responding to me. So, hey, I put the hook with the worm out there. The fish never bit.
T-Bone?
Tough. I would give it a 9.7.
You guys.
Only
Wow.
reason,
That's pretty good.
only
That's
reason,
pretty high.
The only reason I'm talking is cold in here, right? All this
It's
ice.
freezing.
Oh,
You guys
cold.
are
I can't feel
wimps.
my feet.
Doty's over here with his hoodie up, and he's
Got
drinking a coffee.
Like Doty's doing it right though,
The hood is
Yeah.
on.
The
That's how
hood
cold
is
it
up. I think Doty's pouring the coffee down his shirt just to warm up a little bit.
I wouldn't blame him. That's how cold it is in here.
Nah, you guys got to power through.
9.7, dude, we saw. I've talked about it all show long. Look, the goalies for the Wild. You're
Nailed
going
it.
glove side, and you're going high, right? That's how Snuggerud scoring
There
the
you
first
go.
goal of the Blues season
And
tonight.
if that happens tonight, I delegate all my hockey takes tomorrow to T-Bone. He does the rest of it.
All right.
I don't want
I don't
see
show
how
up
it
tomorrow
goes.
if that happens.
Blues in action tonight.
God, I hope it happens.
They are taking on the Minnesota Wild. 7 o'clock puck drop. Alex Love pregame starting at 6. You'll be able to hear it all right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Do you guys remember who scored the first goal of the season last year?
2 years ago, it was Tyler Tucker.
I wanna
It's
say
not
it
what I
was
asked.
I remember 2 years ago it was Tyler Tucker. Also,
I feel like it was
easy toner.
Was it Broberg?
No, he did score the
No.
second goal of the season.
Oh, dang, I was gonna say I remember. I
It
feel
was
like
God. I hope Grant Francis is listening because I promise you that dude remembers. It was a forward.
He scored 2 in the game, actually.
Oh man.
Was it Holloway?
No, it was a fourth liner.
No.
It wasn't.
No, Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou scored 2 goals in the game.
I don't
against
remember that.
I was gonna say
Seattle
Brandon
last
Saad
year.
was my next guess.
I still
including
remember
the
Tyler
first
Tucker
one.
scored a goal in the first one against Dallas 2 years ago.
Who do you guys have scoring the first goal of the Blue season this year?
Snuggy's going glove side, baby. He's going up and over. It's gonna be a snipe. It's gonna be upper 90, as the soccer folks say.
Not going to be upper on the glove side.
Alex?
I'll say stick side, low side, Dylan Holloway.
I will go with Logan Mailloux with your
Such a
first
terrible take.
goal of the 2025 Blues season. Alex, I don't know why I'm even asking this question.
3-2
but-
final score. Blues win. Don't even ask it. Don't know what you're doing.
T-Bone?
I'll say Blues win. I think it's high scoring. Goalie struggle early on. I'll say 5-3 Blues win.
I think the Blues end up getting a win in this one as well. They're playing on home ice. They've been an excellent home ice team under Jim Montgomery. I think they get a win here, 4-2, including an empty netter tonight. They
By who?
finally get an empty netter. That one's going to be by the
Dinner.
captain, Braden Shin.
Oh, baby. They finally
the
get the
ice late in the
6-on-5 to work out well for
I've
them.
been thinking
right.
up a goal on that tonight.
For Alex and
God.
T-Bone, I'm BK. If you guys missed anything from the show, once again, go ahead and check that out on the podcast page. We had Joey Vitale earlier today. Ryan Clark explained why he thinks that the Blues will be better than consensus across the NHL. He's the ESPN NHL analyst. No, not that other Ryan Clark that's on ESPN as well.
Somebody said 7.5 in the text line. Get the hell out of here. This
Huge
was a 7.5.
shout out to Bradford Bruns, who did a great job back in the studio for us today, and to Doty, who made everything possible on the technical side of things while we've been out here at Enterprise Center. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Enjoy the game tonight. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.